One, two, three. The crew is called Me and B. And if you want to go to the hip hop, that's Bernard Hankins over there checking in. My name is Pro, and this is IntroVerse. We're just getting the level set over for Clubhouse as well. My Clubhouse is acting. It's not really my Clubhouse. It's my phone acting funny. Whenever I plug in the headphone, it seems to be messing with my mic. Oh, actually, right now it's good. All right, that's. I think it just shut down again. So it'll like let my mic speak for like 5 seconds, and then my headphones are shutting down the mic. That's not ideal. One, two, one, two, one, two. Well, let me keep it as far away from the mic as I can. But I don't think we have to worry about that too much. Mr. Hankins, how are you? I'm not sure if I hear you via the
Oh,
actual. Oh,
check,
there you
check,
are.
check, check. Yeah, it was
Yeah, there you
muted.
are. One, two, one, two. I think you're good. I think you know what you deserve. I think you deserve the intro one more time. Here you go. Hey,
Check, check, check. All right, welcome everybody. And if you're on Clubhouse, I guess we can ping some people in. Off.
yeah. Where else can you get an intro twice? Free of charge. Didn't cost an extra penny, but we let it happen. So people on Clubhouse, while we doing the ping in, just so everybody knows the deal. If you're checking this on the clips or whatever, we don't do a whole lot of interactivity via Clubhouse. Not because of the introvert title so much, just because like it's actually kind of functionally a little bit difficult to make sure that the people that are watching us on our live stream can actually interact. So we do what we can, but for the most part, it's more of a passive interactivity, I would say. Did I say that about right? You think that about sums it up?
Yeah, I mean we're here, but we're not here.
Exactly.
As
Exactly.
a typical introvert, we're here, but we're not
Yeah,
here.
we're kind of here. We're we're a little bit of both. We
Shit,
yeah,
is that
that's what we
is
do.
that getting echo on your end?
It's my end. It's because of when I'm
Okay.
plugging in the headphone. What happens is my mic. It's one or the other. Either I plug in the headphone and it's shutting me down for whatever reason, or see like right now, you can't hear me talking now in Clubhouse all of a sudden. It just disappeared.
All
So
right.
let me leave quietly from there. See if I can jump back in. One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two. Yes, yes, yes. Check. Hmm.
Check, 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 check.
I'm gonna mute myself on the live stream for a second until I get the Clubhouse right.
All right. Well, for those of you who are tuning in while Pro's getting that together, we're pinging some people in Clubhouse. We do this. Well, we do this on once a one. We do this every Sunday now. Introverse. We don't do a lot of intros on Introverse because we like to get right into it. But right now, as we're dealing with the tech stuff, you're getting a little intro. So today we're going to be talking about intro works. Introverts at home, work, and school. Um, and we're going to be talking about from our personal experiences. And especially as me and Pro both do education, at least for now. I'm teaching now at education, but I'm about to, well, I won't say I'm getting out of education. I'm about to get out of this job. Um, Particularly introverts
What are you
at
trying to say?
school.
What's that coded language actually mean?
Coded. I just said I'm getting out of my job.
It
It's not
sounds a bit
really.
coded.
It's not really coded. It's I'm trying to get out.
It's
I'm
pretty
about to get out of
blatant.
this job.
It's pretty
Oh,
blatant.
can you do one last thing? Can you send me the link? The I didn't because I guess what I logged in right as it was starting, so I don't have I didn't get to put in the little thing where it says send to my channels unless you can bring that up another way.
Oh, I think so. Let's see. I don't know why it didn't show you that. It didn't show you that the first time at all.
Nope. He was like, "Hey, join the stream." And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah,
we're doing it."
I can share it to your page, but that's like a secondary. Not sure. Actually, you know what? I have one idea. It might take me like 30 seconds here. It might actually be a no. It might be a hard no. I might just not want to do it. Okay, so the first thing I got to do is change my page to global instead of just friends. Okay, so now anybody can see it on my page. What up, Tree?
What up?
And boom. Click on them to showcase on stream. Yeah, it's strange, Bernard. Like you said, I you know what I do have? I have an embedded URL for website. That's interesting. Um, I can send you that via the private chat. I don't know if that helps for anything whatsoever. That's that. Then in terms of this is the only one that's given. Oh, whoops, that's the only one that's given me right there.
All right, let's see if this works. Or maybe I can just share from your page to my page. We'll try that if.
Sorry, I should mute this for a second. Get my boot
Yeah, come on, restream. Y'all gotta get it together, restream. I should be able to just click on the link and let's see. Like in Zoom, you can just go up to your page and say, "Hey, copy the link." Yeah, it's giving me. I just repasted it, but yeah, this is bad. We're being bad introverts right now because we're wasting people's time doing stuff. Hey, we had stuff set up ahead of time. I sent Pro email the other day. I was like, "Yo, let's have this stuff ready." So we did have it ready, and then I was just here eating food and.
Well, you know what's going to happen is the Clubhouse audio for me is just going to be kind of in and out. I don't know what to say about that. Our audio here is fine, but the audio for me for Clubhouse is just not going through no matter what I do. It's more of a phone issue than it is a Clubhouse issue. I can take it out. Here's the best thing I can do. When I'm talking on Clubhouse, I'll just have to manually remember to mute when I hear the feedback so that people can hear. So that'll work. It'll just be a little bit more labor intensive, but yeah, I'm good. I'm ready to go. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Tree. She said we're looking handsome. I appreciate that. Yo, always lying for us just to help us out. You know what I mean? I appreciate it. But I mean Bernard, yes, but Pro, I'm looking. Yeah, I was looking today right before I got on this. I was outside with my son, and I was like, "Oh man, should I change the hat?" I'm looking very undercover FBI. I forget, like trying to pretend I work for NASA while not working in the FBI or CIA. That was the look. I think maybe I was going for that look. I don't know. That's fine.
Well, I will take handsome.
I will take it too.
So some people interrupted. I was doing one of those rooms on Clubhouse where I was just I do my walk and talk, and somebody interrupted me, and I thought they want to say some stuff, and then they were telling me how I was handsome. So I was like, okay, thanks. I mean, I'm not going to reject the compliment, but kind of wanted you to say something about the topic of the room, but you know. But I think they were kind of trolling. They kind of came in and left. It was like 3 people. I don't know if they just saw each other. They came in as a group.
You know, I appreciate trolling. I really do. Like, and there's no real. I don't feel there's a firm definition for what trolling is. You know, like maybe that's why I appreciate it when really most people would think of it in a negative light. But when I was probably at my peak busyness in terms that I've ever been in music, I had more haterade than I've ever had in my life. And I've watched the ebbs and flows of that, you know, especially when you're in public more. And I had so much like behind the scene kind of people talking junk just so much, and there is a correlation between when you're doing stuff and people quote unquote trolling, and so I appreciate it. Let's just know we're in the right direction. That's what I'm saying. Like this comment, Bob. I don't know what you mean by this, Bob. We got to put this on. Bob put "lose me" on Facebook. It's really "loose me" on Facebook. So I'm not exactly sure, but Bob, you took time to comment on the show. Like, see, that's what I mean. I appreciate that, Bob. I wanted to put that out there. Tree patrols are entertaining. Bob is like, look, I'm an extrovert. I don't need any of your introvert crap. Don't need any of that. You know,
Well,
Bernard, you know what I think we need to do soon? We need to share a little bit of knowledge about what introverts really are. And I got a couple articles in the shoot we might have to share later to let Bob understand how the dopamine works and all the chemical stuff. He might appreciate that.
well, today we're going to be sharing from the dope dash mean, not the dopamine, but the dope meaning that we have as introverts. Because, I know a lot of people, they're like, well, where's the scientific basis of what you guys are saying? It's like, well, I'm not here to give you scientific basis. I'm here to give you my personal experience, which is that's as equally important as the scientific basis. One, because you can't take my experience and say, well, just because it happened to you doesn't matter. It's like, well, then why am I here on earth? If my my experience doesn't matter, then why am I here? So me and Pro, we're going to talk about introverts at home, school, and work. Do you have any initial thoughts you want to start off with? We can start off with home, progress to school, progress to work.
Yeah. Let me make sure I'm good over there. 1 2 1 2.
I guess just to say engaging. I guess we call this series Intro Works. This particular series Intro Works. So specifically about introverts in work, school, home. So how do you engage introverts in these different contexts? Especially as me and Pro both do education. There's a lot there that I think people could gain from understanding how you should interact with an introvert at work.
Yeah. I would jump right in. First of all, I do think that the term engaging is misleading because we've kind of talked about this before. I think introverts are engaged, definitely mentally. I find sometimes too engaged to the point of minutia. And then the wheels work. Like, I'm that dude when I'm at the movies, like I'm projecting the movie all the way to the end, and I'm very irritating to see the movie with, and I'm cool with that because I'll just have to like make sure the person. I'm like, are you believing this? Like, this is so obvious. Like, look where the end is going. And so I can definitely ruin a movie for people, but it's great because I'd rather be by myself anyway, seeing the movie. I'm just saying, if you're going to be there, I'm probably going to chime in and just be that irritating person when the movies are like that. When they're great movies and you can't figure them out or anything, that's good. And to me, it relates to like when I'm in the boardroom and I'm like, we're talking so slow, and the talk feels like it's in quicksand. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see the end of this. Like this, and I'm looking at the agenda and it's like an hour, and I'm like, yo, this should be 5 minutes, So agendas help. I like to know where the meeting is going, but I'm also cool with when they flow in a different direction, because a lot of time that's sort of the shock to the system. Like, I almost like scheduled, if you will, creative time, scheduled, open kind of dialogue that isn't necessarily for the agenda. Like, hey, whatever happens to pop up, that's when I'm engaged, especially if there's no pressure to necessarily talk. Because again, I'm thinking usually before I say too much, but then once I got the picture, I'm very happy to speak on it. If I'm not one of the people who were like in the meeting who can't speak. I'm in the meeting and I don't want to speak to delay the meeting if I don't have to any further than it has to go, for sure. But don't mistake that for that I won't speak, especially if I
Right.
notice people are lost and aren't getting the idea. I'm like, in a nice way, I'm trying to say, come on, this is A goes to Z. Here it is. So for me, it always works to have like this little bit of open time in there where I feel there's no pressure to speak, but I don't want it at the beginning. Because normally when I'm coming into the beginning, I'm trying to assess the situation, and don't mistake that for that I'm not engaged. It's just I'm trying to see where things are gonna go. So that works for me when there's like no pressure early on. There's time to listen, time to reflect, and then like an open period that I can kind of chime in as needed. Um, I don't know your thoughts on that, but that's definitely for the workplace for me. You know.
Well, the first thing that popped in my mind when you were saying people are probably introverts are probably too engaged. Did you ever watch the show Smart Guy? Came on,
Yeah.
had Jason Weaver, Taj Mowry. If you don't know Taj, he's a triplet of Tia Tamara, sister.
Mm-hmm.
But so the show was cool because he was a 10-year-old, but he was in high school because he was a genius.
Mm-hmm.
So he was always interrupting the teacher. There was this one episode where he was interrupting the teacher, and the rest of the class was like, "Yo, can you just let him finish?" And like, we're trying to get out of here because we're ready to go. And so the teacher had to pull him aside. And he was like, "I'm sorry, like I just got so many ideas." He's like, "It's like zing, zow, wowie," And the teacher was like, "He's like, yeah, I get it. Sometimes I have a wowie every now and then too." So you made me think of that because, like, yeah, I think the introverted person has so much going on inside their mind that to your point, there's a part of you who's like, can we get this over with? I got the wowie, the zowie I'm trying to get back to, and you're like, I have to be here. But
well,
yeah,
I think that's because we're never there for social hour. We're not. We're not there for the
right,
social interaction.
right.
We're there to get out. Typically,
Right.
That's why other people are there for the social component because it's like, oh, group opportunity to be social, and I'm like, you're killing my opportunity to leave. Is just how I'm just saying that's just how I usually think of it.
Well, I think, yeah, I'm like you. When I'm in a meeting, I'm similar. I'm like, okay, we could have shut this down a while ago. Like if I would have been in charge of this meeting, I told you how I would run an open mic. If I was a host, I'd be like, coming up, Pro Lyrical. Thanks, Pro Lyrical, for that rap. Coming up, Bernard Hankins, poetry.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I'm
Bernard, for
not.
that
I'm not
poetry.
that minimalistic. I'm not that bad, but I minimize, but not like that.
I just because I've been at open mics where the host is just like saying stuff and the jokes are not that funny, and there's a lot of like, how y'all feeling, and and I'm just like, dog, can we get on
Yeah.
to the show, and like, can we get on, because I'm trying to get on stage too and perform, and plus people start to leave, and like I've been here the whole night, and now it's like 10 people in the audience, and they put me at the end because they wanted, like, I guess, stronger artists to finish off, but now people are gone.
I sense that too when I'm at a show when someone's being too long, and I'm like, yo, just go, like you're gonna lose everybody. You know what I'm saying? But I'll be like, okay, moving on. You know what I mean? Like I'll at least give them the vocal cue that I'm moving on. I won't be like Bob, but
Right.
I know people want their intro. You know what I'm saying? People want their little intro. They want to be, if you might not, but it's like if someone's coming in, people love to hear about whatever the tagline is.
I mean,
but yeah, move it along though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really one for intros. I really just be like, this is Bernard, he's a philosopher, musician, and then just get to it. Because I don't know, like I told you, you be at some of these events, it'd be like the keynote speaker, and then can be some remarks on the remarks, and I'm like, can we go?
Yeah.
I'm like, can we go? Like, y'all guys just blowing air now, because I don't know. Yeah, give appreciation where appreciation is due. I'm not taking away from people's appreciation and hard work, but I can't stand events where it's like 3 people come up before the speaker. There's just so much preamble. Like if I come to speak, just be like, and there he is, Bernard Hankins. Like that's literally what I would do.
Graduations are the worst. That's why graduations are the worst. Graduations are like you got 8 people who need to speak before it starts. It's like, and they do nothing for the rest of the event. They're just there. Yeah. I think actually, I'm not supposed to say this, by the way. I don't know about you, but I can't stand graduations. Like I'm in higher ed, and it's like they make at our institution, a lot of institutions they do this, right? Wear your regalia, and I'm like, wear regalia? Like I'm in the audience. I'm not on the stage. You know what I'm saying? Like what is the pomp and circumstance for? I find it the most ridiculous custom
I get it.
there is.
I get it.
I'm not big on customs. I'm not big on tradition, quite honestly. I'm not a tradition guy. And it's like certain things I do that I've done for years. Okay, but I'm not enforcing that upon anybody else. I'm not like, everybody has to do this. I'm just like, come on, man. It's just graduations are full of it.
I'll toot my own horn a little bit because I did, as you've seen the video on my website. I did a graduation spoken word commencement address, and so I think people voted for me because they were like, "Oh, he's not going to do something regular." because all
Right.
the month leading up to me speaking, I was like, "Have you finished your speech? Have you finished it?" Like people were anticipating this thing, and I was like, "Yo,
Mhm.
like what do y'all think is about to happen?" Like I didn't even know what I was gonna do at first. I was like, "Oh, people want me to speak." Like
Of course
I
you're
didn't
gonna
think.
rap. Of course you're gonna rap.
Well, I don't know. Honestly, I didn't know what I was gonna do. Like, because people were trying to put stuff in my ears, like, "Oh, are you gonna do something musical?" And I was just like, I was like, "What? Are y'all trying to tell me what to do?" Like, I really didn't know what to do because
Mm.
I didn't even know because my friend she said, "Oh, I'm gonna put your name in the ballot to be like voted for as one of the speakers." I was like, "Okay, whatever. That'll probably turn into nothing." Then the next round came and she was like, "You're in the top 4," and I was like, "Oh, what's about to happen?" And then it came down to it. The class president, she was like, "You won by a landslide," and I was
Mm.
like, Okay." I was like, all right. So apparently
Wow.
people wanted me to do something, or because it's not like people really. I mean, people knew I was
Right.
hip hop, and they know I put stuff into my architecture projects, but it's not like I was like going around the studio, "Yo, what up? Bernard, shoot me, do it." Like I wasn't like rapping 24/7 or something.
Yeah.
Like they knew I was hip hop and I like music, but I don't think I gave off this impression of like, "Yo, every time he come in the room, he dropping bars."
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I just bring me on stage. That's why I'd be like, "Welcome to the stage, Bernard." Like you don't need to introduce me. I know you need some introduction to a certain degree, but I would not be offended at all if you're like, "Here's the guy." I'd much rather spend time on giving you content and meaning than you talk about like, "Oh, and he's got this, and he's got this, and he's got this." It's like, but are you going to leave with something meaningful? That's my question. Are you going to leave with
Yeah.
something?
This went horribly wrong for me when I did the third TEDx event that I did was the Tyson's one, and my wife was part of that event. And so my mistake was thinking that because my wife was part of it, people knew me. They really did. I'd only met a couple people there before, and I had done a TEDx at Howard University, and the coordinator of the TEDx Tyson saw me do the Howard thing. She was like, "We have to have you do a thing." Like she's like, "Could you do a performance to open up the whole event?" That's what I was there for, and they had an audition, which I know you've been part of too. They had an audition for their thing, and they're like, "Hey, this audition night going to be like crazy. It's going to be at the theater. There's going to be tons of people. Like we really want to start them off right at this." And quite honestly, it's an audition, so not everybody's necessarily going to be as polished as the real thing. We want to like come in with you. Well, the people that were running the event knew that, but the people that were filming it and recording it had no idea. So when I come on stage, the lady did a minimalistic kind of thing as because she didn't know. People are sometimes weird with me. They're like rapper at a TEDx, like it's like she didn't want to, and she said my name. She's like, "I don't know how to pronounce his name." I was like, "Professor Lyrical." I said to her before she went out, she was a TV host too. And so you could just tell she was nervous about it. And her intro was so minimalistic. It was like, "And Professor Lyrical coming out to start the show. Give a nice warm applause," right? So I walk out there and the dude isn't filming the event because he thinks I'm just talking to the crowd before I'm speaking and I'm doing the beginning of my piece. And
Right.
so the video that's online, it starts like 30 seconds into my thing, and they're like, "Yo, record that. That's him performing." And I'm doing this whole, and I would like when you can see where it goes over there. So I have definitely felt that I'm in a lot of events where I'm not necessarily the norm. It can both be academic
Right.
or hip hop event where there's something you got to tell them. You got to be like, "Yo, he's a professor and he's doing the thing and blah blah blah." And sometimes people can really botch that, and then it can be vice versa. I'm the only
Right.
rapper at the professor event or whatever. And so I kind of do like the brief little intro to let people kind of know. But other times I don't even want that said because it's not the kind of piece I'm doing. The piece is just it's gonna speak for itself. Here it
Right.
is,
Right. Right. Right.
Um, so it really depends. And then if someone has said this whole big rapper intro and I start with spoken word, it can be a little weird too. So it's like I get why artists want sort of whatever they want, to situate whatever they need. But yeah, I'm definitely get on with the show. I do think to the other piece too, like we're talking about, like the homework or school part. School is an interesting one. So I find anyone who has their camera off, the inclination is to think is what we're talking about now, right? In this situation that we're in, where still a lot of classes are still online, and they will continue to be. The thing you hear faculty say all the time is, "I don't know how to engage my students," and I'm like, "Okay, are the cameras off?" And they're like, "Well, not always." And I'm like, "Okay, if it's a not always, you might be losing that student at some point. And then they might just be going to get ice cream or doing whatever they want to do. And so that's not because they're an introvert. The person who you never see the camera from is one of two things. It's they're in a place where they can't turn the camera on because it's too embarrassing, right? And it's
Right.
like literally it looks whacked, or they're in their car, or they're doing something else. It's just not, it's either not convenient, it's embarrassing, or yeah, they're an introvert, right? Or there's somebody who just doesn't want, they didn't do their hair right or whatever, you know? So there's a lot of things that can possibly be, but I say in terms of to what we're addressing, how to engage them, you just have to ask. You just have to basically ask. I don't mean come out and say, hey, are you an introvert? But there's things that you can ask and say, 1 through 5, 5 being the highest. How comfortable are you, uh, speaking in class? How comfortable are you if I just call on you randomly? And by the way, I am going to call on you randomly at some point. So how comfortable are you with that? And by the way,
Right.
teaching practice, a lot of teachers have an issue about that. I don't like that naturally. I don't like the idea of being called on at random. I totally don't like that. However, in the scholarship of teaching and learning, it is a best practice. We've seen by research-backed studies that students do perform better when they know there's an expectation that they may be called on randomly. Doesn't make for the best culture in class sometimes, and you have to let people know, hey, I'm not trying to pick on you. In fact, I do
Right.
with random sometimes. I have a note. I have these cards. They're just index cards with the name and a few things about each student. I just say I'm just going to pull in there randomly and just pull one out. So my students know that. They know when it's a face-to-face class that's going to happen, and they also know that I'm simulating that in the online version. So it does keep them on their toes a little bit, and it's like you don't have to have the fear that you're going to be the only one, or that I'm picking on you if you don't turn your
Right.
camera on, that kind of stuff. In other words, don't do something that's going to call an introvert out for being who they are. In other
Right.
words, I'm not calling on you because your camera's off, kind of thing. I'm just calling
Right.
on anybody, whether you're extrovert or introvert. And that's comforting for me. I know, okay, I just got to be paying attention, So I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's just one way I think that it can set the playing field. And then ask those
Right.
survey kind of questions. I do a whole thing on intro surveys that faculty may want to do. Obviously one of the things is how comfortable are you speaking, especially in the topic. And when I teach, when it's math, or if it's an education course, that's different. But if it's a math course, there's a lot of people with phobias. But then I say, is there anything else I should know about your personality that you may want to share? And a lot of times people will put no. There ain't nothing I want you to share because they don't know who I am. And the timing of when you ask these kind of things is important.
Right.
Like you better have shared with your students first before you ask them to share something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It don't matter,
Right.
introvert or extrovert. It's like, hey, I'm telling my students, look, I am an introvert. You're hearing me speak. This is not like the thing that's my natural default. And I understand that there's going to be like half of you out there that are probably like me, maybe more than that. This is your chance to let me know too, when it comes back to you when you get the survey. So simple asking is a great way.
Yeah, there's so much to get into. Hopefully we'll get to this because I have to think about this today. Like, yeah, you don't want to shame people, so we
Mhm.
can tie that in at school and at home. But yeah, to your point on Zoom, like, okay, I'm an introvert, but to me, Zoom was perfect. Pandemic, virtual.
Love it.
This is my world. I was like, I got video, I got audio, I can bring in slides, share screen. I felt like I was bringing up, like, I'm like the alien in Independence Day. Got the little interactive screen flipping over the ship. That was me. I was like, move, click, insert, upload. Like, I was just like, that was me the whole year. I loved it.
You
So
mean
here,
this though from the perspective of the educator, not as the student or
yeah,
as
that's
the
me. Now I was saying
right.
me. I love the Zoom. But okay, there's so much to get into. Like you're saying, culture. One thing is, I mean, I've had I won't even say luxury because I mean, I guess you could call it luxury, but you have to know, like, you have to be yourself and know your students. I
Mhm.
mean, people always want to exclude, like I say, these personal experiences. They just want, give us the data. I was like, the data is be yourself. Because I had students who were on Zoom who engaged with me. It was like, oh, because Mr. Hankins like actually is on the Zoom. He's got his camera on. He's fun. He's funny. He's interesting. He's bringing us to stuff of his life. He's not just like, okay, and so slide and okay, like I'm actually being a person. And I was that person in person, right? Me and you talk about that all the time. You're like, yo, if you're boring in
Mhm.
person, you're gonna be even more boring on Zoom probably. So they
Absolutely.
already knew me. He's like, oh, Mr. Hankey,
Shout
he's
out to
not
Pete.
afraid to rap. He's not afraid to show his talents. He's not afraid to express himself. He's not afraid to like laugh. So I'm just being me first and foremost, like you say, making them comfortable, giving them. That's what I always tell people. Like just like with every other part of education, you're going to put an example on the board of how to, solve for X, or this is how you write a sentence. You also have to be the example of how to be a person. That's the thing people don't think about. Like, if you're going to want other people to open up, why wouldn't you have to also give that living example? It's this education by being, by doing. So I would do that. Yeah, I wouldn't make people turn on their cameras. I didn't force it. I didn't say like, oh, you got to turn it on. Those who wanted it on wanted it. Those who didn't. But yeah, you engaged them the same. Or that was the other thing. There were so many other ways you could try to do the chat feature. I would say like, hey, you may not be comfortable with the camera. Chat me. Like, send it in the chat. Like, at least let me know something. Like, let me know you're there, please.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would say that. But the other thing, like, so relationships, and I was gonna say connecting that because you were talking about culture. What was it? Yeah, introvertedness, obviously. You would probably think that an introvert would be more prone to have their camera off, because these all these stigmas and all these lies. I said everybody's been lied to.
Right.
But here's the thing, right? Yep. I don't know. I didn't know who was more introverted, extroverted in my virtual online classes, but we had podcasts. Like, the Zoom was perfect for podcasts because you could record it, you could play music, share screen, play music. You could do a little intro graphic, share screen. So we would do podcasts with our students, and I had their name on it. It's like, A3 Music Podcast with your host, Mr. Hankins, Mr. Orr, and I would really ham it up. I would be like, it's time for the A3 Podcast featuring your host. So I would come and say, yo, what's going on? What's going on, Pro Lyrical? I was like, we are in the building with I'm talking about the one and only Pro Lyrical mathematician, rapper. Y'all know we're going to get in his stuff in a little bit. Saw his interview in Double XL magazine, you know what I'm saying, holding it down. Right. He was on iHeartRadio last week. So I would really like ham it up, make it about them. And then the conversation was able to be had because it was through this vehicle of a creative art form, the podcast. So I think that's what's most interesting is when you do a podcast, people don't think of it as engagement. They're like, oh, I have to talk now. It's like, oh, this is a radio program. Like, we're not ourselves anymore. And I would do stuff like with people on Zoom. I was like, okay. I was like, we're coming in. Let me come over to California. Yeah, let's talk to John. John, how are they doing over there in California? Y'all like the show out there? And people are like, yeah, it's all right. You might get a yeah, it's all right, or it's cool. But when you create that distance, this friend taught me this term. It's called aesthetic distance. It's that thing that like allows you to watch a play or a movie and not be like, oh, this is too overwhelming, because like the art is kind of like, helping you engage with it. It's like when you make it like it's a podcast, I'm radio host, you're John in California. Yeah. People are willing to engage because it's not you being yourself, and it's not so vulnerable and intimate. So yeah, you're not going to get people to open it up and be like, hey, John. So like you're saying, they're not just going to turn on their camera because they might be afraid of what's behind them or what they look like. I mean, you think it's different emotionally? You think they're just going to be like, oh, well, teacher wants me to engage and open up and speak, I'm just going to be vulnerable. No, you have to use a kind of vehicle to get there. So, I mean, I definitely think if you want to take away podcast for everybody, you would think podcasts are extroverted. No, in some ways, podcasts are more for the introverted person.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I know those are great points. In class, one thing that I lean towards is game theory, because it's interesting and stimulating. And I say in professional development workshops, I'll start with a game theory kind of question, because you don't have to be good at math to get the question right. So it relaxes the atmosphere that says, hey, this isn't going to be some high pressure, like kids are ready to get in their note mode, and start, I don't want to miss anything he says kind of thing, and right. It's like, I'm not a good note taker, truth be told, because I'm listening to you talk. I'm engaged in you talking, and I remember what you said if it's worth remembering. If it's not worth remembering and if it's not engaging, I'm not remembering, and I'm not writing notes until I'm desperate. I do not even want to write down what you're saying. It has to make sense to me. And if it makes sense to me, I usually remember it. If I'm paying attention, it's not like I'm going to forget that. Like if you explain to me, yo, this is how you do the derivative, right? If you explain to me how you do the derivative and I can watch it mechanically and I can see the mechanical form of it, I'm good. I'm probably never forgetting that. But if you explain something in a dry way and that I don't get what you're saying, I'm like, I've already lost you. So I assume my students are the same way. So I start with like game theory. I start with puzzles. I start with things that are fun for your brain. At least I guess introverts would find them more fun. But I'm grabbing those people on the edges and bringing them in who've typically been put off by the math or
Right.
marginalized by the math or whatever word you want to use. And what I do find though is the extroverts are like a dog on a bone, but because they're excited to play the game too. So and you see those kids right away. They want to run the show. They want everyone to see them. In a way, they even want to be goofy. And that's what I usually notice. Like the people who want to be goofy, that need their time. I've made the mental note. I'm like, okay, the goofy, silly people, like, okay, I know those are going to be the ones where everything's a stage for them, and I watch people's reaction to them. I see like who's like put off by that. And those are usually like the people that are similar to me. I'm always put off by the buffoonery, when someone's doing that kind of stuff. I've had my moments in classes too when I've been in the buffoonery mode too. It's not like I've always been a perfect schoolboy in every single class that I've had. But again, it's when I'm super bored, not because you're so engaging. Like if you're engaging, I'm not going to be silly. I'm going to be
Right.
listening to you and paying attention.
Right.
It's when you're whack that I'm like, this is whack. I'm just going to do what I want now.
Right.
This is my little comedy show over here or something, man. So I think if you can engage me mentally, I mean, think about Wordle. You play Wordle? I mean, have
No,
you
you
played
asked me last
kind of Wordle?
time.
Yeah. Have you done it yet?
No.
I'm waiting for you. I mean, I got a checklist for you, Bernard. I mean, everyone, like people that don't know, Bernard knows the checklist. It's got several items on there. I'm waiting for him to come around.
Westworld, Wordle, and
Westworld is
another
number one.
W.
Westworld is number one. Yeah. And, I've been doing Wordle. My wife does Wordle or whatever. And I'm a Wordle natural. And I knew that I was before I started playing. Like I can get it in 2, 3, 4. And my wife is too. My wife is, and this is why I bring it up. My wife doesn't do math. She's not a math person. She works around math. She get a math question, she asks me, right? And it can be really basic, and she's quite uh, self-deprecating when it comes to. She's like, "Oh man, it's a math. I got to leave it to you," and it could literally be addition, And she'll just be like, "Yeah, I got to have you do it," and that's fine. I'm cool with it. But on like Wordle, I tell her all the time. I'm like, you realize this is math, even though you think it's a word game. It's like the way Wordle works. If you haven't seen it, for people who haven't played, it's a 5-letter word game, and I didn't even know what the directions were the first time I got. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Right? It's like they don't even have directions. You just figure it out, right? So it's 5 words, and you got like 6 chances to get it. And let's say you just pick the first word is going to be stare, right? Like in green, it'll tell you the one that you get the right letter in the right place, and in red or orange, whatever color it is, that's the letters there, but it's not in the right place. So it's the exact same game. Wordle is the exact same game with letters that Mastermind is. If you ever played Mastermind, where you had to do the Mastermind was black pegs and white pegs, and the black peg. I think there's 3 color pegs. I think the other one's red. Is black peg, white peg. No, it's black peg and white peg that tells you if you got it in the right spot or not at all. That's the red and the green for Wordle, right? And you use multiple colors. So I have a red, a yellow, a blue, and a green. There's 4 of them, and you got to get the right order. All right. And let's say you put red, yellow, blue, green, I could have made it all red if I wanted to, right? You just show me your order, and then I tell you yes or no by the white or the black pegs. Black pegs mean you got it in the right order and the right color. White just means you got the right color, but it's not the right order. Okay. And so you got like a bunch of tries to get that. I use that game in my class. I do it on Blackboard, which for people that aren't in the teaching world, that haven't taken classes, Blackboard is just the learning management system you use to interact with your teacher and see your assignments and so forth. I put it as a discussion board question in color. And we actually play this game on the first day in a lot of my classes because it's an engaging game that is flexing your mathematical muscle without you seeing the numbers. So I tell my wife the same thing with Wordle, and I'm like, look, you're great at it. You get it better than I do on a lot of cases. We're both really good at Wordle, and you'll talk to people, they'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't get the word today. My wife and I, we got it in 2 or 3, and it's the ability to do abstract thinking when you don't have all the information. You have to have the clue. It's a wonderful muscle to flex. And that will bring in all the people who traditionally don't like math. And it also brings in the introverts. And you can see who the extroverts are from far away. You really know who the people are that have to act. it's those kind of opportunities that you do that are like your survey and that are fun, and that students are looking forward to it every time they come in your class. Look at how many people are looking forward to playing Wordle on it. I mean, people are like sweating midnight now because it comes out at midnight. People are like, oh my gosh, got to stay up to 12:01 for the Wordle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but it's math in disguise, or I should say, it's logic, critical thinking, and problem solving, right? Which are the fundamentals to math. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So back, we're talking about homeschool work, introverts. So I think the part of the problem is the things that introverts shine at. There's like very rare opportunities for them to shine. It's like that Einstein quote, like if you ask a fish to
The
climb
fish
a
and the frog.
tree,
Right.
of course it's going to fail. So it's like, okay, let's connect this back to my life. Like there's definitely times. I still don't know. Like I used to think my dad was extroverted. I think I'm gonna say he is extroverted. I mean, he's very. He's a pharmacist now. He used to be chemist at one point. So I mean, he's intellectual kind of person too. But on some ways, I want to say he's extroverted because there's certain things I remember like growing up. I would just look
He's
at
like,
something.
hey, did you get your drugs today?
Like
That's a giveaway, right?
Certain things, like I don't know, like if we were working on a car or putting together some kind of entertainment cabinet for my mom, like I would just notice little details and I'd be like this, and he'd be like, oh, you're very observant. I'm like, yeah. Like stuff that he just couldn't see, like was just obvious to me. And it was those moments where I'd be like, oh, so I have this thing that my dad doesn't have, but those things don't get promoted or championed. It's not until these little these little whatever moments from here to there, they go like, oh, this person does have something to offer. It's like, yeah, right. I always have this to offer. You just never stop to like ask for it. So it's like how to create those situations is the biggest challenge, I think, because I would say most of the school system and work environment is oriented more extroverted. Even introverts get caught up into like I go into a classroom being like, yo, just asking the class, hey, who knows what blah, 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 blah is? Like I already know it's not going to get a response because everybody's just going to go. But I get into like it's not like I'm dumb. It's just like why do I just do that? How people are going to respond or not respond. But you get into these rhythms of just everybody get together in a group. Everybody shout out you just have been trained for years and years and years to do this. So if people who are even introverted and are aware it's happening, I know the extroverts are not going to stop and be like, wait a minute, let me pause and think about the introverts. So, okay, so here's one of my solutions. I don't know how you're going to do it. I mean, I guess it's like with everything else. You just have to start incorporating other people who are like introverts into the equation, who are going to think about introverts. Because I know that I do it on purpose. I had this event one time and then I was the facilitator and I literally said, hey, let me pause for a second. I know some people didn't speak. Don't want you to feel forced to speak, but just letting you know there is an opportunity. So I made a point of saying like, hey, I know you may not want to, but I just want you to know we're not ignoring you. And I think that's what most introverts want. Just like, yo, just make the opportunity available to say,
that's what I meant in the meeting.
If you would like to speak. But an introverted person is probably the only person who's going to do that. The other thing I do is when I'm like on a podcast and I hear one student start to make a point and then someone starts to go like, yeah, and cut it off. Or I see somebody start to talk. I say, hold on, let's pause. Or I bring it back. I think she was about to talk. Like I do that a lot when I see somebody about to talk and then they get cut off or they didn't finish their point. You could tell they were mid-sentence. Or I see someone's about to talk and then the person forgot to, we're going. I used to hate that in school. Like you would hold your hand up. Oh, I'm gonna call on you. And I was like, no, you're not. I would hold my hand up and then they're like, I got you. And then I put my hand down. And then who they go to Mike. Like that's why I kept my hand up because I knew you were going to forget.
Right.
That I had to visibly.
Virtually, it works better though, doesn't it? Like on Zoom, it works great.
Right.
Like I see that yellow hand, I'm like, yo, I gotta like put that thing down, right? And then I'm dying to hit that button. Like when I see somebody left it up and they've already talked. It's funny that Clubhouse has the hand raise feature, but they don't use it the right way. It's like I feel like doing one of these Clubhouse kind of comments to the people on Clubhouse and be like, yo, all you guys on Clubhouse, you have a hand raise feature. That's just so people can come up to the stage, but you don't really have a way of saying I want to speak next. because that's why you have to do it. You have to cut people off all the time.
Right.
You have to make a little sound to kind of know that you want to talk, and there are people will just talk all over you all day. And that's what they really should have. It should be something that lights up and be like, I want to talk next. And maybe it even be in order and have a little 1 in the corner, 2, 3, 4 of whoever was
Yeah.
like next to speak,
Right. So yeah, I'll definitely, when I see somebody about to speak, or somebody said we're coming to them, I remember that person, because I know what it's like to not be remembered. So I think part of the solution is you just need to get more introverts involved in the process who are going to stand up for other introverts. The other thing, this is more for the introverts, and I haven't figured out 100% how to do this yet, but I tried one thing. So I think part of the thing with introverts is like at school or at work is like you were just mentioning, I don't like cutting people off. Like if I hear a sentence, I'm like, okay, you're mid-sentence, inflection, you're about to say this. I have a hard time cutting people off. And so most introverts are not going to interrupt because they're just like, I'm not going to do that to you because I don't like it done to me. And also, you're probably saying something that needs to be finished. And why would I cut you off if you're saying something that's going to need to be finished? So two tips I'll give to people anyways. Hopefully you can take some, maybe this will spark an idea. So here, okay, I'll give you a story to give you the first tip. So I used to work at this place, and there was this computer I would use every day. And I would use it a lot. And I think people kind of I don't know if I was just projecting this, but it seemed like people were like, oh, he's using a computer. Like, I don't want to ask him. But in my head, I'm thinking like, yo, I'm on this computer, but if you want to use it, just ask me. Otherwise, I'm just going to be here. I'm just going to be using the computer. And if you don't say anything, I'm going to assume that you don't want to use it. And then I had a click. I was like, oh, maybe that's how extroverts think about conversation. They're like, oh, if this person wants to speak, they should just speak. Like, I'm not going to like ask them, do they want to speak? Just get in there. So I started saying like, for introverts, it's like work. I think work for us is kind of like our conversation. We're like, hey, we're not going to stop working or using the tool or using the computer. Like, if you want to get in here and work, just ask. Like, it's open. We will respect the rules. So I said, oh, if we see work that way, I'm guessing the extroverts probably see conversation that way. So what I literally have started to do in all my life is I just get in there. I'm like, okay, this feels bad cutting you off, but this is the rules, I guess. So, hey, I'm in here. Like, I'm in the conversation. And I always use the image of like when people are kicking a soccer ball and, you got like 5 people trying to get that foot, that's what it's like. They're just like, yeah, you just got to get your foot in there and get the ball. The ball is getting kicked around. So I think if introverts started understanding like this is the rules of conversation to an extrovert, they see it as the rules. They don't see it as being cut off. They like multiple. So just start talking. It's going to take some work. It's going to take some practice. But I have literally had to just get in there. And one time me and my mom and sister were having a conversation. And my sister was like, hey, I'm trying to talk. And I said, hey, look, I'm just practicing what I've had to do my whole life. I'm just practicing getting over what I had to do my whole life. Yep. And she was like, oh, okay. But yeah, so that's one tip. The other tip, I think introverts, maybe we like I said, when I held the hand up, it's like a visibility thing. It's like, I don't feel like my voice can necessarily get out. So I got hand, see me. Yeah, I'm here. I think introverts are maybe more in tune with their body in certain ways. So when I was teaching, like 3 years ago, like nobody in my class was listening. And I was like, y'all, like, I don't know what's happened. Just like students have not had to respect teachers now. Like when I was in class, there was no talking. These kids just be over in the corner having their own conversation. So I went to Lowe's and I got a stick, a dowel, because I got tired of talking. So instead of saying, hey, I would just grab the stick and I would just like tap it on the table. It's like, okay, you're not gonna listen to my voice. This stick is gonna get your attention. I'm tired of using my voice, but this stick will make sound and you will have to listen. But it also became like an extension. It was like, it had a little like, speak softly, but carry a big stick. That's one of my favorite.
Yeah, I want to.
So I took that literally. I started speaking softly, but I carried a big stick. So I think maybe for introverts.
Good tip, Bernard. Carry a weapon.
hey. But no, I think for introverts,
carry a weapon. I like it.
There's got to be a way to like visibly make yourself present, right? And I've thought about it as like, do you need to stand up at the meeting? You know what I'm saying? It's not always like gonna be possible, because like if you're standing up at the meeting, people might be like, what are you doing standing up the rest of this? But something like there's got to be some kind of physical thing you got to do to maybe make your presence known. So that's what I've been thinking about that. And what are other ways that like introverts can physically like assert their presence to be like, hey, I'm ready to speak.
Hmm. My take on that is, well, I have the stick visual in my mind now, so I can't erase the stick visual from my mind. I've never went there, but um, I think I was thinking this before you spoke. Let me start with this. I think the biggest reward to me, and this might sound funny, and I don't mean it to sound funny, but I will sit in these when I was teaching at the alternative program at the high school. We had a sort of a cash system where you could buy certain things, right? And you could buy rewards. Like you earned. It was one of those point-based systems, basically. It was a point-based system, and we had what were called Ringling dollars. And Ringling was the director of the school. Uh, I forget what his title was, but he was the dude who basically got us the money to open the freestanding school. So in his honor, right, the whole system behind the scenes was named after him. And so you had to get these Ringling bucks. And students who did really well got them. And it was sort of a behavior and academic modification kind of system, right? Which I'm not a huge fan of, but I went with this, did the whole team thing, whatever. But I did run the distribution of this stuff at the weekly meetings. I was sort of the paymaster, right? I was paying you. That's what the dude would call me. He was like, "Paymaster, come on out and give it." I was like, "Oh gosh," and so the rewards, we'd sit in these meetings and we talk about, okay, what would be good rewards? And in every single meeting, I was like, time is the reward. And they were like, what? They were like trying to buy, fuzzy pencils and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't care about any of that. The only thing I want to do is go home. And that's true if I'm a student. That's true if I'm at work. That's true anywhere. I'm always trying to get home or basically have the freedom to leave. I might not want to go right home when I leave. I might want to go to the restaurant. I might want to go buy a drink or something. But if you can give me time off as an incentive, you don't need to tap with the stick on my desk. Like, you just tell me this is the rules to the game, that if you do well here, you will get to leave. Now, that's hard for K-12 because K-12, we don't always have that luxury. But I would say, there are certain things you can sort of simulate for time. Like maybe it's an extra, depending on how your bathroom break works, it's an extra bathroom break if you can do those, right? Maybe it is, maybe you end 10 minutes early in your classes to have discussions with your students. I don't know what every faculty member does, but I would do that at the end of my class. I would always end 10 minutes early. I would have discussions if students had any issues. And it was a gray area. And that was a time where I could let everybody else who was done leave. Like, it wasn't you leave 10 minutes early. You leave if everything was on point. And if you had issues or whatever, you did. So I would extend that. I would extend the gray area just a little bit. I'd be like, yeah, you can even bounce out a little bit early from that. Sometimes it'd be starting late. Other times it'd be you get to go on the computer when other people are doing whatever it isn't. Whether it was bathroom, I was always saying, let me exploit free time, because my general thing, and this is an introvert thing, is that I generally need a break from whatever the social gathering thing is. Like when I go into a social gathering, I already have anxiety before I get there. And the truth is, for me at this stage of my life, it's usually not nearly as bad as I think it's going to be. So now I play these little mental games with myself even before the event starts. And I'm like, okay, it's almost like find the exits. It's like, I was talking about, we do active shooter training. I'm trying to organize, right? I do an active shooter training in every single building I walk in. I'm like, where's the exit? How do I leave? If things get bad for me, truthfully, I'm like, yo, let me leave. Whether it's my own house, I would set up my own apartment in ways that I would be like, okay, how can I get out? Like, it's like almost like a fire drill all the time. Like, okay, I can go on my old apartment up there. I can go on my roof, or I got to go out that front door, and I just want everything neat and clean, and I can just take whatever I need to do to leave. I'm always trying to bounce before saying bye too. I don't want to say bye. I just want to be able to bounce. Right? So it's like I have everything perfectly set up. It's to the point like this, even at my job, it's to the point where sometimes I'll have my keys on my desk. I'll put my keys in my pocket 15 minutes before I even think of leaving, just so you don't hear the jingling of the keys and you want to say bye to me. Dead up. Anything that you would sense that I'm leaving, I don't even want to be there. And I'm like, I feel no need to say bye to anyone. You know what I'm saying? Like to go. If I'm at a party, I want you to go, yo, where'd Pro go? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, he probably left. And everyone knows it's no hard feelings. Yo, I'm at your party because I like you. You don't need me to hug you. You don't need me to be like, tell you how much I love you. I came to your thing. That should be indication enough. whether I'm super involved or not, I could be having the greatest time ever, almost, because the greatest time is going to be when I get home or when
Right.
I'm in my car freestyling. You can't compete with freestyling. I used to tell this to girlfriends, and that's probably why I lost them all. I was like, you can't compete with how much I want
Yeah.
to actually go rap. You know what I'm saying? It's not a great opening line, but it was just truthful. They'd be like, yo, what
A
should I know
great
about you?
opening line.
Like I will always be rapping. I will always be writing. I love math.
Right.
I like big ideas and all this stuff. And the more time I can have to think about them, the better. So if you're that kind of person, we're gonna work out really great. And if you're
Right.
not, you got to give me the time to do it and no hard feelings.
Right. No, I
So,
get it. I get it. Yeah. Well, I mean, well, I guess yeah. To loop back to the very beginning, we were saying the word engaging is misleading. What's going on with this mic? Yeah. I mean, I think yeah. Part of the issue is changing who you direct these ideas towards. So I mean, as we've been doing these podcasts, we've been talking about okay, who's the audience, and I think there's a part of us that's like, oh, we want to include the extroverts, which is fine, but really, it's like this is to empower introverts. So really, the word engaging is like, yeah, like introverts don't need to be like, what do you mean engage me? I'm engaged. So I think maybe the word is more like empowering introverts at work, home, and school. Because the things I was saying about like the stick and making yourself visible, I think it's important for the introvert to say, like, okay, what do I need to do for my own self survival, thriving, etc. in this world? Because let's be honest, as I've come to discover, like the system is not going to change for you. Especially like if you're the person who's not in the majority, they're not like, hey guys, let's all be quiet now. Like you literally had to be forced with a pandemic to be quiet. You know what I'm saying? Like it literally took a global event to make people go like, maybe we should spend time with ourselves inside. Like, yeah, So I think for the introvert, the thing I say is like, look, you have to find these ways, which sucks. I'm not saying it's fair, but you have to find these ways to get in the game. So this is what I was when I was mentioning the soccer, like get your foot in. I was thinking about that as I was walking. I was like, okay, here's the difference, right? So when you're on your own home field, like your rules, and so yeah, if somebody came and encroached on your rules, you'd be like, yo, what you doing? You in my house? You in my space? Bye. Like this is the rules. Leave me alone. Like you're saying, I'm trying to think big ideas. You over here trying to bring some other social stuff. Nah, I'm here to do what I'm doing. But if you go play soccer, they're not going to kick you the ball. Like you have to go get the ball. You have to get in the game. So there is some level in which it's like, hey, when I'm in these meetings or I'm at school or wherever, I do have to go after the ball. Like I have to go after the conversation. I'm not saying it's easy, and it's going to take practice, like soccer. Like ball's not going to come to you. You got to go after and get it. You got to train. So it may take listening to podcasts like this. It may take and getting to a clubhouse and talking to someone just one-on-one. Get in a clubhouse room by yourself, practicing conversation, whatever. Asserting yourself. Coming up with stuff. Like I'm all about creativity. Like I said, I had to get the stick. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a person who plays by the rules. I'm gonna go get the stick, okay? to the hip hop artists out there, I'm not getting that stick. I'm getting a wooden dowel from I'm getting a stick from Lowe's because I said, yo, this is not working. My voice is not being heard, and I'm not gonna be sustained. It's not gonna be sustainable for the whole year. But like, quiet down, everybody. Hey, blah blah blah. So I went and got the stick and was like, tap tap tap. And the reason I did that was for me though. For me, not like, oh, Mr. Hankins has a stick and he's authoritarian. It's like, no, I did that for me. So I could feel like I'm gonna be in here and I got to do something for me to rise above this nonsense that's happening. So I think that's one thing I will say, like, don't expect the class or the workplace to be like, wow, you know what, we've been blind all this time. We really should be like the introverts. It's like, no, they're not going to have that kind of revelation. They really are not. I mean, they might have it if you are around them enough and be like, oh man, now that we've experienced you, like, yeah, well, you're right, we should. But you got to start thinking of creative ways to get your foot in the jostle of getting that soccer ball. I mean, like I said, I don't know if it's standing up, literally standing up. I don't know if it's. I think here's a good thing. Like, I think if you went to your boss, because I can say this for me, I'm curious to know if other introverts are like this. I was in a Bible study once. And like typical people do, they're like, well, Bernard, we know you have a lot to say. I just wish you speak up more. And I was like, well, if you call on me directly, I will. So it's like I gave him the key to how to do it. And so the next time he did it, he was like, Bernard, you have something to say? But I gave it to him. It was different than like you're saying. It wasn't just like them, oh, here's the quiet guy. We need to call on him. I was like, no, I got plenty to say, but I'm not trying to compete with 20 other people in the room. But since you're in charge of the meeting and you have the authority to say, I'm going to call the next person, they're going to listen to you, and you're giving me the open space, so I will therefore speak. But that's it. It's giving people the opportunity to speak. But I think part of the introverted thing is you got to like do your self advocacy part. Like you might have to go send an email, go to your boss, where it's like, hey, in the meetings, I would like to contribute. There's just no space for me.
It's funny you say space. I was just thinking about this. Hope that mic's good. Yeah. So when I was doing event planning for LaSalle University, first time I ever taught that class, there was elements of it that I had no idea about. Quite honestly, it wasn't in the wedding planning, and I had never done any of that kind of stuff. I wasn't that kind of event planner, right? But when I started doing it, I had a very intuitive feel for layouts of rooms and design because, as we've mentioned before, I would always put that nook space. So there's that space word, right? It's like I would always put those spaces. Whether we talked about physically putting them into the event, like here's a space where we can have some stimulating dialogue and everybody's open to talk, right? And it's almost like a respite area, right? And I would physically do that with the seating, the layout. I was even saying that my house, it was almost like feng shui. I bought my house because they had a breakfast nook. I was like, a nook. It's speaking my language. It's a nook, right? It's an area where I can just go and be left alone, right? Downstairs in my living room, I got little areas like that in my very small little room, even where I'm sitting right now. I'm in a nook, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm comfortable when I'm in my little enclave, to use the fancy word, right? And in event planning, a lot of times people just be like, here's the stage, here's what the people watch. And it's like, where are the cool, dope areas? Like I used to set up my VIP like it was a lounge, like there's a little couch way off on the side. People were trying to set up their VIP so people could be seen, and I get that. People that are paying for VIP, they want to be seen. But I was like, if I'm paying for VIP, it's so I can not be seen. Like there are people like me. I want to be in the cut, unbothered, in a dope part where I can watch everybody else. I do that when I'm at the mall. I do that when I go to any restaurant. I want to sit in the spot where I'm watching you and you're not watching me, and that I feel like I'm in the cut. You know what I'm saying? I once went to Busboy and Poets when I first came out here to DC, and they sat me actually on the stage, right? Like they were like, we don't have any spot left, but we have that spot. And I was like, oh, hell no. Like I couldn't bear to think I was going to sit on the stage, everybody else looking at me. And I'm like, bro, I'm a performer, but I don't want to sit on the stage. And they were like, no. Yeah, I'm like, dude, I'm going to be eating. People are going to be looking at me while I'm eating and being like, like, what's wrong with you? Who wants to do it? They're like, that's one of our best seats. And I'm like, not for me. Like, if you flip that in reverse, that'd be perfect. So there is something to this space idea, whether it's creating space for people to talk, creating space for people to think, and creating space for people to just exist and just give me that. I see Tree's comment coming in about this too. And check this out. She wrote this. During lunch, I would sneak off by myself and eat lunch in the auditorium and eat behind the stage curtain. Yo, you're not alone. We got an auditorium at my work, right? Now everybody who works at my work, I hear this and like, yo, we know what progress. I go in there and the security officer is there with me. Like I'm like, oh yeah, don't let me bother you. She's like, oh, you taking the spot too? I'm like, kind of. Like we're thinking the same thing. She sits like up on the corner of the stage, and there's this little area where there's like soft chairs and all this right in the front row. She's right up there. I'm like, yo, we're thinking the same thing. So I'm with you, Tree. I search those places out, and those are the kind of restaurants I go back to. They're the kind of movie theaters I go back to. Any place, man, when AMC came with the little love seat, like date kind of seat over there, man, I find those and I just get one. Yeah, I'm that jerky boy who gets the one seat. By myself, I'm sitting at that date area, and I'm like, yo, so I gotta have that. And I'm like, just think of that intentionally when you're thinking about your layout, your programs, your agendas. This little detail is a way to engage. Well, I know we're not trying to use that word again, but a way to welcome in the introvert to say, yo, I've given you space to breathe, a space to think, a space to chill, and a space to just exist.
Yep. I love that. Space to exist. Yeah. what's interesting to connect to what you're saying, like, okay, so the house let's see, when I was in 6th grade, we moved to a new place. My parents had a house built. So we moved there, I got my own room, huge room.
That's gangster, by the way. Having a house built. That's gangster.
The funniest thing is, like, the first week in there, like, my mom came in, she was like, Bernard. She was like looking all throughout the room, and then she opened up the closet. Where am I? I'm laying on the floor in the closet. She like, why are you on the floor in the closet?
Absolutely, bro.
Because it's the closet. I was like, what?
Best spot in the
I was like,
house.
this is the coziest, smallest. Like, I should just stay here. I was like, I legit would have stayed in the closet. Funny thing is, I don't know what this was about too. There was a time I started in like 6th grade. I started sleeping on the floor. I don't know what it was. Like, bed literally right next to me. I was like, I'm
In
sleeping
the
on the
closet?
floor. Nah.
Oh,
The one house we lived in, I had a bed. I just started sleeping on the floor. Then we had the house built. I had a bed, but at some point I started sleeping on the floor. I don't know what it was. I don't know, being low. I don't know, trying to be different. I had this little rocking chair, little movie chair, and in the corner. I'm all about corners like you. And it's been like that since I was young. I go in the room, it's like, yo, I want to be in the corner. I don't want to be in the front. Like the corners, the nooks. I don't know why, but it's just something about being cocooned, being like sheltered.
I'm gonna share you that science you didn't want to see earlier. We're gonna explore why. I got the article ready for you.
All right. So yeah, I think that's definitely a huge point. But so some other some different ideas, but based on similar concepts about, like, okay, for introverts, right? And everybody has to obviously do what's right for their life. I can't tell you what to do for your life, and I can't tell you it's going to work for your situation. I'm telling you what I've done. So this year, well, let me say this first. This year, I had to make some changes in how I taught, and it's like even when you know something works for you, again, like, you can get into these rhythms of like, oh yeah, just do things the way you've been taught, or you feel like there's this like pressure from above of like, oh, they're going to be expecting this, so I have to do it this way. There's just these frameworks that are in place of like, this is how you greet a class, this is how you say hello, blah 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 blah. So earlier this year, I tried to do the like, okay, I'm going to do the curriculum. I'm going to stand up in front. I have my big screen TV with my computer, and everybody's going to be walked through how to use the software. And it kind of worked for a little bit. And I think they needed some of that structure because they needed to see the program and see me do it. But after a time, like, it was like, okay, they're not listening, or they're antsy, or I was afraid they were antsy. So recently what I've done is like, I'm just doing what I know works for me. I go around to each student individually. I'm like, okay, here's your assignment. See this? This is how you do it. Like, I don't do the spread, the casting of the seeds anymore. I'm a one-on-one kind of person. So I'm like, I'm just going to be one-on-one with students. Like, I'm not going to, obviously there's some information that kids should be like, hey, we all got to sit here and listen to this because it's the same for everybody. But it's like, also, why? That's just because of the way it's been done. So it's like this tension of all these people in the room, and we're always trying to like throw the ideas out there. But why can't we like break that big ice chunk? That's how it feels to me. So another way I did that, back to the Bible study I had mentioned, the same guy who I said, hey, if you call on me, I'll answer.
I'll speak.
So we had like 25 people in this Bible study. First and foremost, I was like, yo, how come? So there's way too many people in here. So they would start off the Bible study and be like, hey, do we have any like prayer requests and praise reports? So it's like 25 people. And we went around to like, every person. And I was like, man, it's 25 people. Everybody's going to have a prayer request, a praise report. We're never going to get done. And so we hadn't even got to like doing the prayer yet. This was just like getting a poll of like who has what. To pray for John, pray for his wife. And so the person in charge was like, okay, how are we going to do this? So I saw him struggling. I said, hey, why don't we break up into groups of 4, 4 of 6, and he's like, oh, good idea. I was like, yeah. The introvert had to bring that idea of like, hey, make smaller groups.
Subgroups.
Like, why would we go around and pray for every 25? No, like, God is going to hear all of us. So y'all 4 can pray. Y'all 4 can pray. Y'all. And he was like, good idea. And so it's that breaking things into chunks is helpful. So maybe you have to do that for yourself. Maybe you have to recommend that to somebody. It's like, hey, do we really need to go around to every person to do an intro? Or like, hey,
by the way, does the Bible recommend 3 or is it 2+ for prayer? I think it's 3, right? I think it's 3 groups of 3 or more are, and you shall be heard, right? I believe it was 3.
Well, you're probably thinking of, he says, we're 2 or 3 gathered in my name.
2 or 3, right? It's 2 or 3, right? Yeah.
But my friend makes the point to say it doesn't mean like only 2 or 3. I don't know. Is that the quota?
It means at least. It means at
the
least.
core. Yeah.
It means at least. It's an at least
so
statement.
So like there's just that idea of like, I feel like with the extroverted ways, like this big chunk. Like here's this big tension in the room. We're gonna talk to everybody and we're gonna present. It's like, no, 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 no. We need to break this big
Right.
ice chunk. That's why they call it icebreakers. Right.
Right.
When you go into a meeting, it's like, yo, there's so much tension in this room. We don't need each other. Let's break the ice. I'm saying a similar thing, but in this different way. We don't need to go around to every single person and get input. We don't need to go to every single person and hear their name.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just like, hey, yo, you want to introduce yourself? Introduce yourself. The rest of y'all, are you good? Just yeah, cool. Like
Mhm.
introverts would love that. I hate that. Like I went to another conference. They're like, let's all come up in a line and introduce. I'm like, why? It's like
I
100.
can't stand watching that go around and wait till it gets to me. I'm like, oh, I'm
Number
like the
one is like
countdown is killing
100
me.
people. It's like
Yep.
100 people. Logistically, I'm like, we about to spend an hour just asking people's names? No. Number two, I don't want to do this. I didn't get in line. So if you're an introvert, I would say you have to break rules. And the question, I mean, again, it's your life. So you have to decide, can you break these rules? I teach an elective where nobody cares. So they're not really coming in the room and seeing what we're doing. So they were like, Mr. Hankins, why are you doing this one-on-one? It's like, because this is what I need to do for me. I'm not going to sit there and try to talk over a group of people. I'm going to speak to you one-on-one so I can be heard and I can communicate to you specifically what I want you to do.
Mm. Elective. I elect to be here. So you would think, right? So you would think with the elective. I am choosing to be in your company. I've determined that this is the spot that I want to be. And it's like, really? Did you really? I love, by the way, just to that point, I love electives. Electives were like paradise to me. I couldn't wait to
Right.
get to my elective classes. If I missed if I had, like you'd have a Monday off, but it's when I have my elective. Like, I don't want to miss that. Like, come on, man. Because literally I elected to be there. And again, with time, it's like I am trying to leave and not be there for anything that I didn't want to go to. In any way that I can find I'm like water. I will find the lowest point. I will seek right on out, and I will get. Tree said, "Right, Bernard." LOL. She was laughing at your breakdown. So let me share with you. There's a few articles connected. Jill. Let me share you this one. This is the why do introverts love being alone? Here's the science. Okay, and by the way, I would argue I don't love being alone. I love having time to think. If there are people who are thinkers with me and are going to engage in the thinking, I don't need to be alone. It just most often happens in the introvert world that you do need to be alone to make it happen. Why do introverts love being alone? Here's the science. Chemically, there's a good reason introverts really enjoy being alone. So it gets into this dopamine kind of thing, and it gets into this other chemical that I can never say correctly, Bernard, but you can take a crack at it maybe if, if you want to. Introverts require less stimulation. So here we go. Take, for example, two friends, one an extrovert, the other an introvert, at a house party. They're crammed in a room with lots of people, loud music blasts from huge speakers. Everyone is practically shouting to make their voice heard over the din. A dozen conversations are going on at once, along with a dozen things to pay attention to. For the extrovert, this level of stimulation may be just right. He or she, I should say, sees potential rewards everywhere. An attractive woman across the room, old relationships to be deepened, and new friends to be made. Most important tonight is a chance to elevate his status within the group, that is, if he makes the right moves. So the extrovert feels energized and excited to be at the party, so motivated, in fact, that he stays late into the night. He's worn out the next day and needs time to recover. Partying is hard work, after all, but to him, the energy spent was well worth it. Now back to our introvert. See him hunkered in the corner? For him, the environment is simply too much. It's too loud, there are too many things to pay attention to, and all the people in the room create a dizzying buzz of activity. Sure, he wants friends and to be liked too, but these rewards just don't appear as tantalizing. So the introvert heads home early, or he watches a movie with his roommate in his own with just one other person. This level of stimulation feels just right. Dopamine difference. Chemically, there's a good reason the introvert in the party scenario feels overwhelmed, and it has to do with the neurotransmitter called dopamine, found in everyone's brains. Dopamine has a feel-good chemical because it helps control the brain's pleasure and reward centers. It enables us to notice rewards, give us energy to move towards them. Another helpful thing dopamine does is reduce our cost of effort. Socializing expends energy because we have to listen, talk, and pay attention to a stimulus. Technically, socializing is tiring for everyone, even extroverts. However, dopamine helps with that. Extroverts have a more active dopamine reward system. This was the paragraph I was looking for to just start with. Extroverts have a more active dopamine reward system, according to DeYoung, and it's built in. As a result, they can better tolerate and often overcome the tiredness that inevitably accompanies socializing. Most of the time, they just don't feel the same level of mental and physical fatigue. So they put this little drawing here about the dopamine input and output for the extrovert and introvert. And so they're showing how the introvert doesn't need that much, like, oh, thanks, I'm good. And the extrovert is like, more, 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 more. Extroverts have a low sensitivity to dopamine to require large amounts of it, while introverts are highly sensitive to dopamine. Too much of it makes them feel overstimulated. The article goes on to show the brain paths in the other article that's connected to it. It's, I think I have to hit the back arrow here. I was in it earlier. And yeah, so this drawing here, for those of you who can't see it, basically it's just saying there's a shorter extrovert dopamine pathway as well from the introvert brain explained. And then the longer introvert, this is the word I can't say, Bernard, I don't know about you.
Where is it? Where we're looking at? I'm trying.
Acetylcholine?
Wait, I saw it earlier. I can't see it now. Where?
Acetylcholine? Oh, sorry. I guess when let me stop sharing and then reshare because I switched articles. It didn't flow with me. Let's see.
No, I mean I saw it. I just couldn't see the word on the screen.
Oh, okay. Right above the brain there. Acetylcholine? Acetylcholine. I'm going with that.
Acetylcholine. It looks like almost like acetate.
I know, right?
Acetylcholine.
Yeah, something like that. You're doing well. If Laney's theory is correct, this means introverts process information more thoroughly than extroverts do. No wonder it can take us longer to put our thoughts into words, react, or make decisions. And then this gray matter one is interesting. Finally, a study published in the Journal of Neuroscience found that introverts had larger, thicker gray matter in their prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain associated with abstract thought and decision making. Extroverts had thinner gray matter in that same area. This suggests that introverts may devote more neural resources to abstract thought, while extroverts tend to live in the moment more. It's interesting stuff. So I don't know if it's the end all be all, but
who are these two articles by?
This particular one is this, by the way, is Introvert Dear, award-winning community for introverts. And this article is they quoted the person twice earlier. Where did it go? Laney. In the Journal of in the study in the Journal of Neuroscience is, let's see, it is Avram Holmes, Phil Lee, Marissa Hollinsted, blah blah blah. And that's from the Journal of Neuroscience.
But the article, like just this article, so the site is Introvert Dear, and who wrote this like actual article?
Yeah, I lost that. The other one had the name of who wrote it. This one didn't have the tag. Gene, there it is. It's covered up by the ad. Gene Grainman.
Okay.
Jen, sorry, not Gene. Jen Grainman. So
introverts. Both of these are on Introvert Dear.
Yeah, which I've never seen until today. Introverts are sensitive to dopamine. Introverts prefer a different side of their nervous system. Introverts use the long acetylcholine pathway, and there's the whole gray matter part as well.
Right.
And basically they sum it all up and just say what this means. They basically say it means as an introvert, you're probably born this way. Although you will grow and change over time as we all do. They also say that we grow to be more introverted over time. That for me is patently not true. I have definitely got more extroverted over time. Maybe as a young child, I might've been extroverted at a certain amount of time. I don't remember it, but I've definitely gone the other way personally. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I mean, as we have our discussions ongoing, I mean, to me, science is not a issue. It's just like I don't think science is the only way to look at life. So I think when people are like, oh, because your brain is this way, it's like, okay, yeah, that is a part of it. So, but it is cool when you can find like physical things in the brain that show like, oh, this person is actually processing something differently. So yeah, the dopamine thing, I'd be curious. My thought is I'd be curious to see, like I say, when it comes to work, because I feel like the opposite happens with work. I feel like when and it depends on what kind of work. Not necessarily like physical work, but
Right.
like thinking work or deep conversation work. Because like the article was saying, like, yeah, partying is hard for both. It's just like the extrovert has like more of a like, oh, I can take another dose of dopamine. I think the introvert is like that with the deep conversations. Like,
Mhm.
because I can talk. Me and a friend had a conversation once for like 6 hours, and I was like, okay, like yeah.
Mhm.
But for some people, like you're like 30 minutes in, and they're like, woo, like this is so deep, and I'm just like, no, we haven't even got started. Like we're only on the
Mhm.
introduction. We're not on chapter 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to see like an MRI scan of in-depth conversations where nuance and different, like circling back to points and tying ideas together and quotes. I'd be curious to see the extrovert brain and dopamine on that versus the introvert brain and dopamine on that.
Mm. You know, there's another part of this too. I wonder about like I have one thing that's very flattering to say, and I have another thing that's totally not flattering to say in terms of myself with this. Let me just honestly state them both. Um, when I was younger, I worked for this guy he had like a hydroelectric power plant, and I was lucky enough to land the job with this guy, and mostly because of my size, I'm pretty big, and so I was able to do a lot of physical labor, but it was also a thinking person's job. And the first part of the story is whenever he'd lean over me and like be hovering, and what I've talked about the hovering thing before, hovering over me, I was a total moron. I was breaking stuff. I was like, I cannot have someone watching over me like that. I tell my wife that when I'm in the kitchen, I'm like, oh man, I totally like I'm not good if you're like really watching up on me like that. I am a moron, right? But if you leave me alone, man, I feel like I figure anything out. You know what I'm saying? But you watching me, not so much.
Right.
So I don't do that as an educator. I don't hover over people. I don't because I don't like that. That's not the main thing I was going to say. I just want to say this. But when I was working for him, he incorrectly thought because of my first few days, when you're doing that, you're trying to mentor someone through a position, you're going to be more hovering than ever, right? Early on, probably.
Right.
So he had me pegged for an idiot. He thought when he was interviewing me, I was a smart guy. And then he realized, no, I hired an idiot. I broke this. He showed me how to use a siphon on the first day. I broke the lever on it while he was watching me do it. I
Right.
busted it right off. I was like, oh my God, I broke the thing on the first day, right? And this dude was cheap. I grew to really, really like him. He was an old school dude, right? And brilliant. I mean, built a hydroelectric power plant by hand kind of deal. Brilliant dude, right? Very old, very in great shape. I mean, when a dude was like in his late 70s, he was like fit as a fiddle doing half the work with me, right? But he'd get me out there, whether I was carrying crushed stone or granite from the quarry. He could mentally get me to do just about anything. But what he didn't actually know is that there was nothing I couldn't do. Like, meaning, there's no level of physical tired that I've ever felt that is tired as most everybody else. I have a higher tolerance for. I don't want it. Trust me, I don't want to be there. I want to be home. Right? Like again, I'm trying to think of how I can get home. I can play mental games. I said this before. It's like I could easily be not easily. I shouldn't say it. It sounds silly. I could be a Navy SEAL. Like that's the flattering part. There's no amount of pain and torture that I can't take because I watch everybody else fall off before me. I can go longer and go strong. I've
Right.
always been like that because it's not the physical. I mentally trick myself. It was so many different things like, oh, I only have to carry this for 4 more feet, or I can break it
Right.
down, think about it, abstract, think about everything I need to do to make this work and play these little mental games. And that's like what I saw in the article talking about these Navy SEALs. They do the same thing. And I'm like, yo,
Right.
that's what even has me quoting Navy SEAL, right? Marine, all that kind of stuff. Never did any of that, but it's like I've been through hell on the non-military side. When I work for this dude, bro, I can't even tell you. Like people who know. Like people that know I work for this guy. This guy was a piece of work. The stuff he'd have me doing as a kid working for him was just crazy. It was
Right.
probably illegal, but it was like I'm going to granite quarries.
Well,
I
just a quick
busted up my
second.
finger, my hand,
I think you're
and
still muted on Clubhouse for the
oh yeah,
Clubhouse
yeah,
listeners.
yeah, yeah. I am muted on the Clubhouse. Sorry, let me undo that. But yeah, so this dude would have me doing all kinds of mental gymnastics for physical gymnastics, but I'm doing the mental gymnastics, right? And here's the thing though, this part that's unflattering. I can't stand pain. I can't like I can't stand your pain. I can't stand my pain, but I only mean that figuratively, not literally, because the other side of it is I can stand any pain. It's weird. It's like I such a baby in my head thinking about pain. If there's pain, I avoid it at all costs. I go
Right.
path of least resistance. I don't want to deal with the pain. But then once it happens, I can sort of trick. Like I'm like, oh, like you slam my hand. I have to deal with it now. Like once it's hurt, once I'm in that hurt, but I'm the biggest baby, the biggest softy ever when it comes to like, yo, if I'm thinking like there's a chance I might get hit. There's like when I play basketball, I'm not driving through the lane at all unless it's like a wide open. Like I played this morning, right? Did really well, but I mostly didn't drive through the lane unless I really had to. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want my ankle sprained. I don't want you to hit me in the head, right? But if you do, I'm like, I'm fine. So it's this weird dichotomy where I can trick myself out of it, but I can't stand it from afar. And as a result, I don't want to see you get hurt. I don't want me to get hurt. I avoid it at all costs. But yet, when it actually happens, I'm like, yeah, this ain't so bad. It's the weirdest thing. It's like the anticipation of how bad stuff is going to be mentally for me makes me do everything I can to avoid it.
Right.
But it's like when it actually happens, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just finding a way, like to mentally overcome. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it is my reality in terms of like, okay, I have to deal with this pain now. I will mentally make it go away because
Right.
because I don't like it so much. It's just how it kind of is. I only say all that stuff like thinking about the let's bring it back this way. The dopamine thing, like often you talk about pain receptors when you talk about dopamine and all this kind of stuff, right? Like, yo, I have heightened sense to pain. So much so, I feel like I have to play these games once it actually happens, is what I'm saying. And it's like, I feel so sensitive to someone else's pain that I won't even, I'm like, I'm such a baby. I don't even want to watch the show if there's blood. Like, I am not the blood and gore guy. I'm not the tough guy. Go, yo, let's watch Die Hard. I don't want to watch Die
Right.
Hard. I don't want to watch people getting shot and killed. I watch movies where people get shot and killed if it's to get me to a higher place. Like I
Right.
love The Matrix, so I'm going to watch people get shot and killed, but it's not a blood and guts kind of thing. I'm like, yo, I see someone's leg get twisted. I can't watch that. I'm not
Right.
watching the replay. I'm not watching Sports Center. I
Right.
don't need to
Right.
see it. You know what I'm saying? The
Right.
dopamine, I guess, is firing high there. But once it happens to me, all of a sudden I have this different mental aspect I can do to like make it go away, and then I don't feel it as much. I don't know what that is, but that's what it is.
No, I mean I get it because what you were saying when you first started, yeah, I've maybe talked to one other person similarly. Whereas like when I was growing up, people would say, "Oh, I'm so tired," and I'll be like, "What do you mean?" Like I don't understand when people say they're tired. So what I
Mm-hmm,
would say to people is like, "Yeah, I get sleepy tired." In the sense,
mm-hmm,
like I'm a human being. At the end of the day, my body's like, "Hey, time for you to start over. Time for you to recharge and regain energy." Um, but I don't get tired like when people talk about going to work. Like, "Oh, I'm so tired." And I'm like, what do you like?" I still to that day don't understand what you mean you're tired
constantly
because
say the same thing.
because
Constantly say
my
the same thing.
because my body. I think one it has to do with when you're a person of purpose. You enjoy what you're doing. Like you actually replenish yourself while working. So you're not just you're not just sorry, this mic. You're not just drained and then nothing filling you back up. I think, like I said, I think introverts get energy from work and being around work. And so your work actually is that it's that see, ooh, there's like it's that intrinsic thing. Like when you're intrinsically motivation, it fills itself back up. So maybe that I think that's how extroverts are with like people. Because I remember this church I used to go to, the pastor was like, he's like, man, I could talk to people all day at work and they get home and want to talk to people again and feel energized. And I was like, that is not me. I was like, I don't want to talk to people at work, after work. I don't but what was interesting later in my life, I realized that
Word up.
that was work for me because I remember one time I had a doing videography. I had a gig in the morning from like 9 to 2, and it was such like a gratifying feeling, video, film, blah blah blah. And then I had a sports event from like 2 to 10, and I remember just driving on the way over there, like about to go work some more. It's just like most people be like, "What? I'd be so glad to get off at 2 and then go home and talk." And I was like, "No, it's like we're going to work another 8 hours."
Mm.
Obviously, like I said, but I enjoyed it as well. It's part of my purpose. So it's funny. It's like for me, yeah, like you're saying, like I don't get tired and like I can just keep going. And like I remember one time I was doing a video job, and I had to do a handheld camera, and I had to be there for like 2 hours or probably more. I don't remember. And when I was done, the people were like, "Wow, Bernard, you got some stamina." And I was just like, I guess,
Yep.
like.
Yep.
So yeah, I think there is something that. So I'd be curious to see an MRI scan or something while introverts are working and what the dopamine is doing, because there is something to that. Like, and I think, yeah, there's something to just, yeah, I think there's something with the work. I'm be very curious
Yeah.
to see that.
Well, I'm the same. I mean, so much so that my friends, I've said this before. My friends will warn people about me. They're like, and Fee was watching earlier. Fee has given the disclaimer to other people, like, "Yo, you don't understand him. He's not wired like you and I. Like he can go forever, but it's that kind of stuff. I go forever when it's in my lane. I don't understand when people say they're tired. I'm like, I'm never tired. Like, what are you talking
Right.
about? Like, my son said something to me. It was so funny the other day. He was talking about my age, and he had this recognition of my age, and he was like, "Daddy, I wish you were 30." And I was like, "Why do you say that?" He was like, "Well, then you'd probably be able to play with me all day." And I said, "Why do you think if I was 30, you'd be able to play?" Well, he's like, "Well, you'd be younger, and so then wouldn't that mean you'd have more energy?" And I was like, "Son, I never lack energy. If you notice, I'm playing with, like, my son has no idea. Like, he does. He does. He tells me every day, he's like, "Oh, Daddy, you're great, Daddy, whatever." Like, I play with my son probably more than like I've ever played with any human ever, right? Like, of course, right? I mean, I should say spent time with. And he's only 8. Well, he's going to be 9 tomorrow. I spend so much time with that kid. He has no idea. Like, he doesn't have anything to compare it to, right? But he sort of does, because he'll go, "Daddy, I have other daddies, and they don't do what you do with me." Like, dude, I can roll with you. Like, even my road dog, I can roll with this dude all
Right.
day. But he doesn't understand that it's like, that was just so funny to hear him say that, because that's his perception of what people are like. He's like, "Well, if people are younger, they probably have more energy." And I was like, "Son, trust me. I never get tired. I can't do it because there's things in the way." You know what I'm saying? But it's not like, "Oh, I don't have the energy to go to the park." Dude, I get the energy to go to the park. I can stay at the park all day. We can go. I went to the gym 3 times yesterday because I'm in that zone right now. I'm like, dude, I was at the gym at 11 o'clock after we got back from doing a little party thing for him. I'm in the gym. I played full court basketball in the night. I played in the morning. I was lifting weights in the gym. I was running. Once I get in that zone, it's like bing, like the head goes crazy. I don't mean it physically though, but it still does carry over into the physical too. Normally, it's
Right.
mentally. It's like, someone said, "There's something going on in New York right now." Sure, I'll drive down. I don't care. Like whatever. I don't care what time it is. I'll go. I've always been that way. That may change. There may be some kind of magic number that I hit or something, or when my biological clock changes, but I was not wired that way. I'm
Right.
the only person I know who would never say no to certain things that are in my wheelhouse. Like, if someone was like, "Yo,
Right.
you want to go to the library and work on?" Yep. Like, well, basketball. I'm not the greatest basketball player in the world. I shoot pretty well, but I'm very average. About very average, right? Someone, you can call any of my friends and they would say, "Yo, you want to play basketball?" I've never said no. I always want. If it's in my lane, I'm never tired. I'll
Right.
make time. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like that's just the circuitry, yo. And I got friends, scores of them, who are the complete average. I mean, the complete opposite. They're the complete opposite. They're always tired. They're always whatever. And I'm like, "Yo, bro, you talk." I've always said this since I was a kid. Like, you talk like you're retired. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Well, funny you say that, because I like my mom. She just retired. Well, this is her second year of retirement. But she always says to me like, "Are you saving up for retirement?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, I don't like, what am I gonna do? Like, I don't- I can't retire. Like, I don't understand what that word means. Like, I can't foresee myself just being at home. I mean, I could, but
yeah,
I
but
don't.
I was gonna say, you probably could though, if we positioned in the right light. Like, Bernard, you could read, write, produce, do whatever you want with no schedule, like, and you just can be creatively active. Like, I mean, it's got to be positioned in the right light. I bet you could
Right.
come around though.
Well,
But I
I mean,
get you.
yeah. I mean, obviously, I could be at home, but it's like not home in the way I wouldn't be at home the way people traditionally talk about retirement. Like, can't wait to wake up and do nothing, like that kind of thing. I was like, I'm not waiting
Yeah,
to wake up and do nothing. I think I told you about this in one of the episodes. Daniel Pink, his book Drive, he said there was a guy who
yeah.
said, "Why would I wait to retire? I can start sprinkling retirement years throughout my time now." So once every
Hmm.
7 years, he takes a sabbatical. So yeah, for me, I think yeah, there's something to that
That's dope.
retirement. Yeah, it's like I'm not the kind of person who's like waiting to get to the end of my life to do something. So, okay, so to what you were saying too about the tired. So in some ways, I guess, I told you we had to do a whole, like, if we do, when we get to Patreon eventually, I want to lay out my whole extrovert, introvert, work versus social thing. But part of the idea is this. I think introverts hate the social settings a lot of times, and so then that loops back around for them to take it out in the work setting. It's like, oh, so you guys made me go to these parties? Guess what? Now you guys got to work. You don't get to talk at the water cooler for about 5 minutes. Oh, you want a little office party? Yeah, once a year. Cool. Like, no socializing. Like in school, it's like no socializing. We're here to work. In between the hallways, you can socialize. Stop talking. Shut up. I think the extroverts have it bad when it comes to work, because I think that's why everybody's like, oh, is it Friday yet? Like, is it Wednesday, hump day? Like, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I think all the extroverts are like, why do we have to be at this place where we're not allowed to talk? And that's why I think the meetings get turned into social gatherings. That's all. It's like, oh, finally we can be let out. We can talk. Yay! What's your name?
And I'm like, finally let me out. Like,
right. And the introverts are like, yo, I'm not here to socialize. I'm here to work. Like, we don't want y'all to come out of your shell. Go into your shell. Like, get into your shell and be quiet and get this meeting done. I think the world would be a much better place if, one, there was actually no meetings, or, like I said, break the meetings up. Let the extrovert people go have a social meeting and let all the ideas flow. Let the introverts have their own meetings. Like, okay, when y'all guys are done flowing, we'll take all that energy, we'll gather it up, we'll turn it into something, we'll submit it. I think the workplace could be revolutionized. School could be revolutionized if you just let everybody be what they're supposed to be. I mean, that's kind of the problem now. Like, people are not actually being themselves, so then they end up resenting it. I think that's why a lot of people nowadays, they resent reading and learning. And so they're like, hey, we did all that. You guys forced to do that for 12, 14 years. Now we just want to party. Like, we don't want to think. We don't want to be smart. You smart people are what made us hate being smart. And then, the introverted person's like, yo, we don't want to go to parties. Y'all forced us to go to parties. Now we want to sit home and read. So I think there's something there with that too.
Yeah, it makes me think of a salesperson analogy again too. It's like, you talked about when it's social hour, and I think about how much of an extrovert world it is, and how much of a sales driven world that we live in. We've talked about it many times. I can't stand the thought of sales, right? And partly, what do you think about sales conventions, sales meetings, sales, like going to parties and like fraternizing and doing all that kind of stuff, right? And it's like all stuff that I don't enjoy doing. I actually can say I don't mind fraternizing. Yeah, it's even funny for me to say the word. I have to like concentrate on saying, because it's so rare to me to say fraternizing. But I don't mind doing it if it's among people that are like-minded, that are like, in terms of like, they're trying to. This is the thing. I'm trying to build. I'm trying to make things. Like, you're an architect. I'm trying to make, design, build, create, produce. I'm not trying to sell it to you. Let someone else go do that. That's not what I'm doing. I want to be in the back room, make it. If I need to be on the front, like the stage, delivering this thing that I made, I'm cool with that. I can deliver my rap. I can deliver my spoken word. I can be in front of the camera, but I don't want to be out shaking hands and kissing the babies. And that's the thing. It's like politics does appeal to me because I do want to make change. I fundamentally am change driven. But then I'm like, why would anyone want to be in politics? I'm like, yeah, I think about it all the time. I'm like, I should 100% be on the school committee. There's no doubt about it that I should be on the school committee. I look at myself almost like I'm underachieving by not underdoing, you know what I'm saying? Not being involved in my community enough because of my expertise in that area, let's say, right? And my commitment to it with my son in the school system. I'm like, what am I doing not being on the school committee? But then I think about being in that, got to go shake hands. I do not want to do that. I don't want to go run for anything. And the problem is, it's like, okay, I do know that I'd probably have something to give there. So it's this fight with myself. I go online every so often. I go, let me look at the political things that are going on in the city here. What's coming up that really I probably should run? And I don't do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I don't do it. But it's like, why would someone put themselves through the lambasting now of the political process that is out there, unless you are an incredible extrovert? It's an extroverted political world. It's an extroverted sales-driven world. And so much of that is what drives the world. I mean, we're doing science in the back. Those are the extroverts in the lab. I mean, the introverts in the lab. The introverts are in the lab, right? The salespeople, the CEOs, those kind of people, like the going to parties, fraternizing, politically, kissing the babies, doing all that kind of stuff. You can have all that. If my happy medium would be, just having someone else do that for me. I show up. I'm not saying I wouldn't show up, but I'm like, show up, talk. And that's what keeps me out of the game. That's what we're talking about, trying to get the introverts into the game. It's like, don't make me kiss the babies and smile with all the pictures and all the time. Like, I can do it I have to build up to it. Like, yo, if you tell me next month there's an event that I need to be at and do it, I'm going to be at the event. I'm not saying I can't do that, but I cannot have my daily existence being, I got to go do that. That is exhausting to even think about. Tree put the emotionally exhaustion or fatigue is a real issue. Like, I can say I never have emotional exhaustion though. I'm never like, oh, I'm so emotionally. I'm never emotionally drained. I'm drained. I mean, I guess it's an emotion though, so maybe I'm drained thinking about the fact that I'm going to have to go to a bunch of public things and sit in the meetings, and that stuff can be where I use the drain word. But I'm not emotionally exhausted. I'm never in a situation with this high emotion going on and I'm drained. If there's like something that's heavy, I'm not drained by that. I actually can thrive in that where there's, because I want to think through the problems and try to figure them out, and what I'm saying, trying to help people. But yeah, it's if I gotta go kiss the babies just to enact change, it's like, yo, I got nothing against the babies, but I don't want to be like, oh, look at me, like, look what I'm doing. There's time for that, but that's what keeps people out. It's like, yo, everybody wants to make a change in the world. If you want to do it through a political medium, it's a bunch of posturing and posing, and you have to be like that to be in that world. I'm sure there are some people who aren't, but you got to win a popularity contest to go do that kind of stuff. So it's like, it's frustrating is a better word.
Yeah. I think my friend mentions this is like, I think he said it was like Nixon Kennedy was the first time the debates were publicized or like televised. So then you could see the president. So then it was about personality and image. And like, if you think about it, if it was on the radio, theater of the mind, you have to actually like listen to the person's content. You weren't like, oh, they're so attractive. Like, you didn't know. So yeah, there's definitely a popularity piece. I guess there's probably some people who would also argue though that in some ways the government is too introverted, like laws taking forever to get passed, and let's sit around and think about this law before we pass it. And the extroverts are like, yo, can y'all just pass this? Like, it's obvious we need it. And the guy's like, no, we need another session. We got to go through 7 levels of votes. It's like,
well, that could also be the polarity that there is in the country right now is at an all-time high, right? I mean, we have an all-time polarity high adding to this. In general, yeah, I would tend to agree. But now it's just kind of like, you go into a bar and it's like, you got to think about, not that I'm going into bars, but it's like, you got to think about what you're going to say, who you're going to say. I think about all that with my neighbors. My wife will remind me. She'll be like, oh, you weren't talking politics with them, were you? No. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, I wasn't going there. I know, but we live in a military area, right? And it's like people are very passionate about what they are, and technically, I also do work for the government as well, but like, it's like 70% of the people here work for the government. I just happen to work for a state university, right? But it's like, that's not what your typical government job is. And people are like polarized, bro. It's like you go to the pool and people are on their best behavior to not even talk about that kind of stuff right now. So you can imagine how long it takes to pass a bill now. It's like,
well, I mean, yeah, there's
look at the Supreme Court nomination, dude. People were walking out on the poor lady. I was like, well, are you kidding me, bro?
But I think in general, like if you think about at least our government, the American government, and just look at the way it's set up, there's like so much like law and appeal and then like there's so much like like the amount of documents. I was watching some documentary and it was like we printed out all the documents and it's 70,000. I was like, oh my goodness, like you're gonna redo 70,000 pages of stuff. Like, I'm sure some of this could have been reduced, but somebody somewhere felt the needs like, nope, we need every jot and tittle and comma. We don't want to mess. So the extroverts are probably frustrated, like, yo, how come these laws aren't getting passed? And the introverts are like, how come y'all are just protesting? It's like the introverts are like, yo, you got to do more than protest. The extroverts are like, yo, but we got to do something. So it always comes back to that balance I'm talking about, where it's like, yeah, I guess we need to find the ambiverts. It's like, where are the ambiverts who are like, that seems to be like the golden persons. Like, hey, we need someone who understands both, or people who have tapped into both. Like I say,
I like
social
them.
introvert, creative extrovert.
I get along really well with them. Just more and more asking people, like, do you think of yourself introvert or extrovert? And people are like, I'm kind of in the middle, and I'm like, yeah, I thought you were. And there's something appealing about people that are like that. That sort of see both sides of the fence on that. I find those people I'm highly engaging with, because they have to probably come make contact with you. It's like, I don't actually know that many introverts that well. Two introverts, it's probably hard. It's like passing ships in the night kind of thing. You need someone who's a little bit more aggressive typically to go. I work with people for years and don't know what they do. I mean, I'm that person where they talk about the neighborhood's so terrible. It's not like the old days where you don't talk to your neighbor. Yeah, I don't talk to my neighbor. I'm in a townhouse where we're the end unit. Like, I'm kind of forced to talk to my neighbors, but I don't know the names of the people who live in the last two. I mean, they're like 4 in a row, right? I don't know the names of the people who live in the last 2. I think one lady, I think her name is Rachel, and she's super extrovert. She's super nice, nicest lady in the world. And the only reason I know is because she's so extroverted. She's always coming around. She knows my son's name. She knows his birthday, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and then the ones right next to me, the one across the street, I don't know any of their names, like none of them. Like, I don't honestly care to know. Like, I know it sounds bad, but it's like, I don't care to know really, because it's like, I'm not going to knock on your door. I respect that you're in your house. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like, hey, I'm not the welcoming committee. It's never happening. My wife, definitely. My wife could bake cookies and come on over and do all that stuff. Like, and she's my shield.
She's my shield. That's the next T-shirt we're releasing.
Yeah, she's like,
human shield.
Him, But once I know you, like, she asked me the other night about a friend of ours' dad. She's like, oh, you guys talk? I'm like, oh yeah, he's cool. He's like my people. Like, he's definitely in the same lane as me, and we only met because we were forced to. And then it's like, that's how introverts meet a lot of times. It's like random occurrence or forced. But if you don't have that ambivert who's going to come out and connect, you probably you meet an extrovert and you're an introvert, you're probably not talking to them. But be honest, it's like you're probably not meeting them like that. But the ambivert's the middle ground, and then you're like, oh yeah, they got stuff I lack. I'm cool with them.
Well, I'll tie in what you're just saying as we start to bring it to a close.
Yeah.
To your point you were just making about, you don't care to know them. I don't think it's a bad thing. One, I saw a meme yesterday. It said, when people say, hey, you didn't come visit me, it said, they're not coming to visit you either. I was like, facts.
Yeah, but if they are, I'm pretending I'm not home. So I'm generally pretending I'm not home.
So I don't feel guilty about.
Was that the door? No, son, it wasn't the door. That was on TV.
I don't feel guilty about not getting to know people, because I'm like, are you getting to know me? Like, it's a two-way thing. Also, as I say, it's about purpose. I believe you will cross the paths with the people who you're meant to cross if you're in your purpose. So if I'm doing my stuff in the lab, and then we're at decide to go to a party, and somebody's like, oh, I'm in marketing. I'm like, oh man, maybe we should talk at some point, because I'm working on something and you might be looking for something to market. But yeah, I don't feel the need to just go out and know people. I don't like forced things. But I'm gonna tie that to what we've been talking about, coming full circle. In a way, the introvert wants to be called on and pursued. That doesn't mean we're sitting here like, I'm waiting for you, like we're special. I'm just saying, like, if you want to get to know me, come get to know me. And if you're interested in what I'm interested in, you can
otherwise I'm good.
Right. Yeah. It's not a matter of I'm sitting here wondering when are people going to come get to know me. It's just like, I just have, like, they're talking about the low tolerance for dopamine. We just have a low tolerance for people. Like, I just don't need enough. I don't need people as often as you. I don't need
for dopes.
Yeah, I don't need to like inject myself with people, but so often it's like, birthday, Christmas. Okay, I got my fix.
It's funny you said that. I was just thinking about one holiday. I made a song over the weekend. I meant to send it to you, and I played it on the Pro Course Show. It's called Masquerade, and I'm talking about everybody wearing masks. We're talking about what's happened since 2020, and I do touch on the introvert extrovert thing in this song. I say something about introverted and extroverted, and I talk about, we're all wearing a mask to some extent. So it's interesting. I was thinking about this. The one time I'm very extroverted is Halloween. I love Halloween. And I was just thinking about that while you were talking. I was like, why do I probably like Halloween? It's funny that you ended with the holidays. Birthday, check. I got it. Okay, right? It's like, yo, I'm in a mask. Like, y'all know who I am. I get to come to your door, get the candy, see random strangers, don't really have to engage with them. Is like, but I do like, I mean, I like the energy of Halloween since I was a kid. I love dressing up as superheroes too. That
Right.
probably added to it. But I'm like, yo, Halloween for me is like paradise. And so I want people coming to my door. My wife is like, oh, turn the lights off. I'm the opposite on Halloween. I'm like, no. We got to make sure we're there because I value it. I'm like, I know kids going to like it. If they're like me, they're probably going to love it. I'm like, yo, kids, come on over. Like, oh, I'm here. And I get like amped up for the, and wouldn't you know, it's the holiday that you're wearing a mask, and you know what I'm saying? And there's, it's just, I was just thinking about that in retrospect, and I'm like, it really ties into my song Masquerade too, and I spelled it, you'd like the way I spelled it. I spelled it mask or aid, as opposed to
Interesting.
masquerade. It was a little Bernard thing
Well,
I
I
did there.
mean, this goes to what I was saying about the podcast earlier. When it's in a container or a vehicle, it's different for the introvert. If you say, "Hey, let's
Mm-hmm.
just talk," I'm like, "About what?" As I said, if somebody sends me a text like, "Hey," probably not going to answer you because to me that's not urgent. But if you say, "Hey, like I need some advice," or like, "Hey," saying, "Hey," and what have you had any music you released lately? I'll get right back to you because it's a purpose. But when it's just like saying, "Hey," I'm like, I don't know how to respond to you in a sense. Like,
I never
I'm not just
respond to hey.
yeah, I'm just not gonna text you back, not because I don't care about you, but just like it feels like so open ended that I don't really, or I take it very literally. I'm like, hey, like I meet your hey with a hey. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
to me the purpose of that conversation was hey. It's funny. Somebody on Facebook once, she posted, she's like, man, I was texting somebody and they stopped texting. She's like, don't you get that I'm texting you because I want to talk? I said, okay. I said, I'm gonna give you some insight. Maybe this person is very literal and logical like me. I was like, if you texted me and said, hey, Bernard, I want to talk to you, you have now defined a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know most people don't want to say that. They don't want to come up to you and like, hey, I'm lonely and I'm vulnerable and I like people. Nobody's going to say that to you. But if you did, I would say, oh, you've defined the parameters. You're lonely, you're vulnerable, you need human. Great, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you were talking about stuff which I couldn't stand, I could somehow get, like you were saying about your kids earlier, it's a game. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're presenting to me a game with rules. So if you frame your conversation, I can now find a way to get in the conversation with you. Now that's going to take practice on the extrovert because the extrovert probably doesn't think like that. The article said they live in the moment. So they see
Mm-hmm.
people, they head first, dive in, let's just talk. They don't think about the context or the they don't like to think about the rules, I think. They don't like the
Mm-hmm.
idea that there's a boundary.
Well,
It's just like let's just
I
dive in.
I also think it. I agree too. We definitely got to wrap up, but I also think the objective is different for the extrovert. The extrovert is not only energized by the communication and the social aspect; it is with the potential goal that you become friends, and that
Right.
is the opposite goal that I have when I'm. I can truthfully say that when I'm engaged in conversation, I'm trying to give you as little as possible so that you would potentially not ask me to be your friend. It's just like it's become very clear to me. Like for years, this had to have been a wall. Like my man Robbie Rowland, right, a former student of mine, is a producer and an engineer, and does an incredible job. He's in Massachusetts, and for years he was the conduit to people doing collab tracks with me. He has to explain to everybody Pro doesn't like doing collabs. I don't like doing collabs because I don't want to get to know you. Like I
Right.
don't. I'm cool with it saying it now. Like for like, there's a big part too. Like I know the work I'll put in on the track. If I don't know you, why would I want to do a track with you? And I sure
Right.
as heck don't want to be on a track with you if I have to charge you. That means I don't respect you as a human. And you know what I'm saying? It's like I don't respect what you do. I think you're whack. I think you're not going to do your. Why would I put myself in that situation? So when people say, "Yo, what do you charge for a collab?" I charge as much as it takes for you not to want to do the collab. You know, like, and the few times where I've done it is
Uh,
because somebody has actually paid that amount, which I'm truthfully saying, yeah, it's probably not worth it to you. I lead with it's probably not worth it to you. Like, yeah, it's probably not worth it to you. But if I
Right.
know the people, I mean, I'm not charging anybody. Like I want to do the track with you because I know you're gonna do your thing. I know you're dope. You're pushing my mind. You're making me think. But it's like
Right.
collabs, bro. Collabs is the worst thing for me. Like when people are like, yo, you want to collab? No, I don't want to collab. I don't know you. I don't. Someone hit me up on Facebook, like, yo. That's how they usually start. They'll be like, yo. They'll be like, hey. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be someone asking me if I want to do a track with them or if I want to do a show. No.
Right.
And I don't even want to do your show most of the time. I mean, it's terrible to say that as an artist who's supposed to be doing like our shows. It's like generally like I charge too much even for the shows I do. Like I'll be like, yeah, what's it going to cost? 10 grand. It's like, and truthfully, I should probably do it for 7. But it's like, no, I want to do it for 10 grand. I need it to be at the price where it's the top level of what I'm worth
Right.
because I don't want to do a million shows. I want to do just the select ones that A, can afford it, B, that are worth it to me. Yeah, I'll lower the price if it's totally in my wheelhouse and it's close or whatever. But I don't want to do the collab. I don't want to get to meet you because I'm thinking the worst. And I think the extrovert is thinking the best. They're like, yo, we're going to make a friend. I'm going to have someone to go out with. I was just recently talking about this from the other side of the coin, thinking about it from the extrovert side. And they're like, it's been tough trying to meet people. And I'm like, trying to meet people. I'm like, the last thing I'm trying to do is meet.
Right.
But I'm not anti-people. I'm like, yo, if I meet someone who's cool, great. I'm all for it. I just don't need another one on my plate right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need another person in my friend box. I don't. But if I meet someone who's cool, great. I just played on my basketball team today. I get 8 of us showed up today. I don't even know their names. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm shooting around with them. I'm not even talking. Someone will say, hey, and I'll say, hey, what's going on? I'm not talking to. I'm not like antisocial like that. I'm just like, I'm here to shoot. I'm here to play. I talk when we go to the bench. We won our game today. I was like, yo, we need control the ball, blah, 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 different little strategies. I'm like, yeah, wrap them up, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, after the game, I'm trying to leave as fast as possible. I put my shoes, all my stuff together so that I can grab it as soon as the game's done so I don't have to do the post-game talk. Truthfully. They probably think I'm the biggest jerk there is, but it's like, I want to get home to my son. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
My game was at 8 a.m. I'm trying to get home to my son. Does that make me a jerk? Because I don't want to talk to some random stranger about, hey, when are we going out to the bar to drink or whatever, And I'm also 20 years older than all of them. And they think I'm the same age, which is great. But it's like, yo, I can't wait to get home. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, okay. To you're saying about the purpose of the extrovert introvert.
Thanks, Tree.
I think that the introvert. Well, okay, I can't. I don't know if I'll say it for me. Like if I was, what were you saying? You're saying the purpose of the friendship thing. I think both people actually have the same intention. It's just the time difference and the definition of friendship is the difference. So yeah, when I meet a person, I'm not like, oh, I don't want to know you. I'm just like, are you worth getting to know? Right? Like, are you
and I think with a negative perspective, though, you're probably not. Like that's just
probably.
I'm sorry, it's just been my experience.
So it's not that I don't want friends. It's just like I don't want friends that are going to take a lot of work for me to do. Like if you don't know yourself, and I gotta like pretend like I'm not me to like know you, it's like that's a lot of work for me to like not be me. Or it's a lot of work for me to wait for you to develop yourself, which you should have been doing for your whole life. Like, so it's like, it's not like I don't want to be friends. It's just, I think their definition is more friends quicker. And we're thinking like fewer friends over a long period of time.
Quantity, baby.
So it's like these two graphs cross path at some point. You should actually put this into a math formula. This would be a very interesting math formula.
I'm finding the break-even point of friendship.
So it's like,
already see it.
You're thinking, you're like, okay, point A to point B, it could be like 20 years. Because that's what it is. For the introvert, they're like, yo, it's not that I don't want to be your friend. It's like, I don't want to be your overnight friend.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to be your friend overnight. And it doesn't mean it should take years for us to get to know one another. If you can do that overnight, I'll gladly take it. Because there's people who is like, you meet, you're like, bam, we're friends now. Yep. It's because they know themselves so well that you get that you're the same kind of person.
You get them immediately.
And there's not all this work that has to be done to get to that point of the friendship. So that's why I always say, if you're not working on that introverted aspect of who you are, you're going to have a hard time connecting with introverts because they are like, yo, I've already done the work. It's like me building 2 floors on my house. And you're like, can you help me build my foundation? I'm like, dog, I've already got a whole 2 stories. Like, I'm not going to
And that's
stop building my house to come help you start your foundation.
and I mean the same thing too when I say a person isn't worth getting to meet. Of course everyone's worth getting to meet. It's just like in my what I have to offer, right? And in my time frame, and the probability that you're a person who has it all figured out and that it's quick, and then I'm like, yo, like this person is worth investing my time into. That's what I mean. It's like meaning that in this time allotment that I have and that you
Right.
have and how far along developed you are with yourself, it's like I'm not trying to go bar hopping with. I've never been about that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so when I sense that from far away, that someone's like on the adrenaline kick, like I have no adrenaline kick, none. I don't have an adrenaline kick. Like I don't. I'm not trying to skydive. I'm not trying to. Yo, we should go wall climb. No, we shouldn't. You know what I'm saying?
No, we should.
You know, like no, we should. Like in fact, I'm playing basketball. It should be, you know, like that's as close to wall climbing as I'm going to do. But it's
Right.
just like what you put it better. It's like in terms of what they've developed and how much of a time commitment that's going to be. And it's true. I think of that, man. I can't help but think about those kind of equations in my head. I'm like, oh, I don't want to get the odds are low. The odds are low. Let it just happen. If it happens, I'll know it when I see it. You know what I'm saying?
See, and I think this is because I have all these parallels between like introverts and men and extroverts and women. Like I have all this cross diagrams. So I think in this instance, a lot of time introverts get to feel like the woman, like on the dating. It's like yeah, you better bring your A game. Like bring your best pickup line. Like, no, you're bye. Thanks. I'm over here with my girlfriends having drinks. Like we just I want to hang with the girlfriends I already know. So the introverts are like, yo, don't come to me with your lame pickup lines. Don't come to me with your like one night stand intentions. I don't need you. Okay. So if you're not smooth up
give me that substance. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not smooth up front, you can't get my attention up front. We're not probably going on a date with you. So bye. The friendship.
Yeah. With the exception of you can have the disheveled look. The disheveled look actually might be a sell.
Right. Well, my
we gotta wrap it up, man.
My final thoughts. I was gonna say, I was saying we're bringing it full circle. Yeah, the pursue. Okay, so the pursue thing. Yeah, don't feel bad if you're not pursuing people because they're not pursuing you either necessarily, or they're not pursuing you in the way that you need to be pursued. Like if you're not catching my attention, is that my fault? Be interesting, right? Like back to the dating thing. If I went up to a girl said, "Hello, I'm Bernard," she can be like, "And." Like I have to present myself. I have to show you that I'm worth pursuing or I'm worth your time. You're not just gonna say, "Oh, this guy's Bernard, great." No, you got to present something. But the pursuit thing, I think, is huge. We didn't really get into the home part of it, but I think if you're an introverted child, your parent is probably gonna have to pursue you more than they would just any other child, because you have to really say, okay, this child thinks differently, follows a different kind of path of curiosity. So they don't want to just hear like, "Hey, pro, how was your day? Hey, pro, how are you?" They want you to say like, "Hey, pro, I saw you over there playing in the dirt. What was going on?" Like they want deeper questions. So the introvert.
So you mean they were like, "Yo, that's pro."
Yeah, they were like, "Yo, that's pro." So if you're a child and plus if you're a child, you don't probably know you're introverted. You're not thinking, "I'm an introvert. My parent needs to pursue me." But intuitively, you kind of know. You're like, "Why is my mom just asking me these random questions?" Like, "How was your day? How was school?" You're like, "I don't care about any of this stuff you're asking me." But if you say, like, here's a thought you could ask a child, like, what was the coolest thought you had today? Like, you would get an introvert to like open wide open. Like, what was the most interesting thought or the most fun thought? And think about that throughout the years, from young to teenage. Like today, if somebody came up to me at work and said, "Bernard, what was the coolest thought you had today?" I'd be like, "Oh my goodness. Whoa, I will talk to you, right?"
Where have
Yes.
you been?
Yes, I will talk to you, right? But people just say, "How are you?" I don't know. Good. So the last thing I'll say is
I do you a favor. I don't ask.
yeah. Or that. Don't ask or go deep. It's like nothing deep. It's like that's my scale. Nothing, the meaning of life. Nothing in between. I don't care about anything in between those questions.
I actually never say "How are you?" I say "What's going on?" because I want to know what's actually going on.
Yeah, I don't ask people anything. I try to be genuinely. If I do ask somebody, I try to find something I'm genuinely curious about. Like, "Oh, I saw you had that book," or "Oh, I saw or think about something I've seen about it before." But I don't try to ask just random stuff. So I see you got new shoelaces.
I think, see, this is working into what we need to do a show on and what we need to incorporate into the live version. So this is what I'm thinking, and I'll wrap it up with this: is that like your pickup thing, we need pickup lines for introverts to use all the time. Like, in other words, here's the cut to the chase. If I'm meeting you for the first time, right? This is what I'm trying to say. I'm interested in a lot of stuff in the world, and there's a lot of stuff I don't know. And I don't have enough time to get to it all. But man, I got like the top 10 things that I really like to find out and dig into more, that I'm fascinated about, that I want to go and research. You're one of like a billion people. The chances are that you're not as interesting as some of those things that I have. Tell me about something that you do or that you're thinking about that is extremely interesting, and it may compete with one of these 10, and I may give you that time to actually, that's kind of it. That's kind of what I'm saying. So for me, like, I lead with, yo, I'm a professor, I got a doctorate, and I rap.
Right.
What? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm a mathematician too as well. Oh yeah, and I do like quantum steam initiative. I hit you with the big stuff fast. And
Right.
conversely, I'm always saying the same stuff. We're talking about this minutia stuff with my quantum steam stuff. We're talking about, I made the big idea board. Like, I have this whole diagram of like, you know, like, what is interesting about this? Like, start with the big stuff. Like, yo,
Right.
this is what I do. So if nothing about that appeals you, you get the wrong person, because this is what I do with the majority of my life. Oh, and you know
Right.
what you'll get in bullet 2, like the subtitle of the book, like to think of myself as an amazing dad. You know what I'm saying? Those
Right.
are the
Right.
things that matter to me. Like, I want to be the best possible parent I can be to my son. Um, I'm a pretty good educator. I'm a pretty good mathematician, and I'm a really good lyricist. Those are the things that I'm. If you want my good at statement, those are my good at things.
Right.
The rest of it I pretty much suck at. But things that I'm interested in: space, universe, philosophy,
Right.
spirituality, philosophy. You know, like art. Like that's what I'm into. The rest of it, not so much. Yeah. Okay,
So
your turn.
the last two things out in the so yeah, the pursuit part, yeah, you got to think that your child wants to be asked more interesting questions. But here, okay, so I'm gonna tie that together with what you're saying and the thing I was gonna say to what you were saying. If you haven't practiced asking better questions, you're gonna be that. I think that's why extroverts don't do it, because that's the realm where they feel helpless. Like the way we feel in the social setting when someone's like, "How are you?" We're like, "I don't know what to say to this. How great weather?" We're like, "Yeah, cool." You say, "Oh, philosophy." They're like, "Whoa, this is so deep." It's because they haven't practiced that kind of stuff. They've been told like, "Oh, that's not important. You know, just get to know people, blah blah blah. Know your math, your histories, your science." So you got to ask better questions to introverts if you want to get to know them. Um, the pursuit thing, going back to I said, like, yeah, if you're, I would say a tip for introvert at school or at work, if you feel comfortable, like tell your teacher, your boss, like, hey, I have a lot to say. If you give me the space, like call on
Mm-hmm.
me, but you got to like tell them to pursue you. So that's I think that's the thing. Is like introverts actually have to teach extroverts how to interact with them. So
Mm-hmm.
here's what I was gonna say to your point, and I kind of have done this, and I still haven't had the, I guess, the courage to do the rest of versions of this. So when I would go to parties and they had those little name tag, I hate the name tags. My name. I started writing questions. I started being like, "Yo, guess my name," or like, what did one
Let's
time I
go.
put guess. I put like guess my name, win a prize, or something like that, or 3 guesses.
I
I
would have
forgot.
guessed Bernard right off the rip. I mean, I would have like again, Westworld, babe. You got to watch Westworld.
But I think that goes to what I was saying earlier about the stick. Like introverts, I think like objects. Like
Back
it's
on that
hard
stick.
for us at times to get our words in, so we need objects to negotiate. So I mean, that's what this pickup artist, he would teach, like put an interesting thing on you to have somebody comment on. So like deflects from you. It's like, oh, look at that feather boa you have on. Like you'd have something that sticks out. Like sometimes I'll just take a book with me because it's like, oh yeah, I'm reading this. Like comment on the object, not on me.
Mm.
It's indirect. So here's the thing, as you were saying, I think this could be a thing. We should just come up with some and then give them out or sell them. It's almost like instead of just regular business cards, it should be like a business card, but with your top 10 interests. So if somebody comes up to you and they start talking, like, nope, shh, just hand them the card. Like, pick one of these. Like, what is anything on there strike you? Like, or like you say, turn it into a game. And like, yo,
Mm.
I don't do this talk thing. Like, let's play a game right quick. Flip them the card, and they're like, oh, what do you mean,
Well,
hip hop professor? Well, let me tell you, the
right.
icebreaker thing.
Well, what you're seeing is what we're saying from two different angles and hitting in the same place is what we always say. We're skipping the small talk and we're going right to the big prize. What are those big centered ideas that you have that you want to dig into more. And I want to wear that as my name tag. I want to say, like, I kind of am. Like, yo, I'm into everything NASA. You know what I'm saying? Like, I made
Right.
these shirts actually. It says "Run DNC." It was when the Democratic National Convention came to Boston. I
Run
was selling these.
DNC.
Yeah,
I'm
I made
weak.
those in the street. I actually stole the idea because someone had did a different Run DMC, and I was like, "Yo, Run DNC would be really dope." And I was hawking these, rapping with the b-boys in the you know, at Harvard Square or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'd jump up and rap, and I'd be like, "Yo, Run." But that's neither here nor there. But the point is that I'm going to usually wear either muted colors, blues, black, brown, gray. Those are in my wheelhouse. I'll occasionally wear some red and blue and some green or whatever. But for the most part, I like to wear like kind of neutral stuff. And I'm with you. The object is very telling. You know what I'm saying? The object that I'm rocking is probably very, very telling. And the item of clothes or something like that, like it'll kind of tell you. But I think that's a wonderful idea. Like if I had a shirt that kind of had the checklist on it, it was like, yo, I rap, I'm a professor, I love science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Have a good day. You know, keep it moving if that's not you. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, that's it. You know, it's like, yo, the chances are just really slim that you're into the kind of stuff that I'm into. And you don't have to be into all that stuff, but tell me some other crazy idea that I haven't really thought about. And I might be like, yo, that's dope. Like,
See,
I can't wait to hear more about that.
but I think to like add to that, I don't know if I would say that they're probably not into it. It's like I think they haven't been challenged or like
Exposed
pulled
correctly.
in by the introvert. It like
Mhm.
I told you situations where I've been with an extroverted person, and until they talk to me, they're like, I've never thought of this before till I was like, yeah, because you need that introvert in your presence to like pull, like I always say, they're always trying to pull you out. Come on out to the party. It's like this is where we're like, come on, bring your
Come on into
intellectual
the
self
house.
out. Yeah,
Yeah,
come
yeah.
on.
Yep.
And so I think if you presented something like, yo, rapper, professor, mathematician, dad, like they would pick one of those, and then they were like, "Oh, I've always been curious about rapping, and like, how does that go?" Like they have these thoughts, they just don't feel comfortable saying them, and especially when they get around other extroverted people, they can only go so deep because
Mm.
they just want to meet more people. But when they come to you, it's like, great, now I can be the expert to show you what is deeper. But I think
Yeah,
they have to
yeah,
be like pushed against. So I think, yeah, we
yeah.
should do the t-shirts.
I agree. And you know, I would let me close with this. I don't think of myself. I know other people think this. Other people think of me as a fascinating person. They'll be like, yo, you do rap and you do. The reason I don't think of it as fascinating is because I do the things that I like and that I'm interested in. Like, in other words, I don't do anything fascinating. I'm just into the things that I think are fascinating. All I do is rap about them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I rap about them and want to expose you to them. Like, I'm like,
Right.
yo, did you know? Did you know that we just found today, like 300 million years after the Big Bang, we just found the first galaxy that exists, or that, when I say first, one of the first 300 million years is like a blip, right? When you're talking billions of years in the existence of the universe, right? So we just found today, and we think that the supermassive black hole in the middle of that universe is 100 million times bigger in terms of mass than our sun. I said 100 million times bigger than our sun is the black hole. And by the way, black holes are very small. Right? It's like, okay, that's crazy. You want to talk about that with me? I'm your person. I'm definitely the person. The chances are, I feel that you are not that person, but I would love to tell you why I think that's fascinating, what the implications of that are. And by the way, I'll rap about it. So that doesn't make me fascinating. That black hole that's sitting in the middle of the universe, well, in the middle of that particular galaxy, and how we were able to find it out is fascinating. That's fascinating. I'm not. I don't do anything fascinating except rap. It's not like I'm smelting iron ore or anything like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, that to me, I find fat. I told you before, some of the hand blown glass, like, yeah, if
Right.
you can hand blow glass, I'm all in. You know what I'm saying? If you can, like, if you rap, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I rap too. I get it. I understand how you do that, right? We're probably connected. That's dope. But like, yo, if you like smelting iron ore or something, dude, you're a fascinating person. Me, I just do the things that are connected to the fascinating stuff. I don't do anything fascinating. That's how I look at it, you know? So And
All right.
what'd Tree say? She said, my sauce came out amazing, by the way. She was making sauce while she was listening. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thanks again. Well, with that, I think IntroVerse number 6 is in the bag.
Roll that outro.
I always forget the outro. I gotta do that.
Got a bookend it.
Outro time, Devon. You're not gonna hear the outro, but we're playing it over on the stream.
Eventually we'll play it on Clubhouse when we get the whole.
That's right. I mean, I could hold the phone up real close and be like, "Yo, here you go." Like, take the headphones off and let it come through the computer.
Sure, I'll do it.
My brother-in-law's here. Peace.
Peace.